checks that had been written with regard to the media ecosystem that the right's been building for a very long time.
On the line with us is our old buddy David Pakman, the host of the David Pakman Show, the author of the new book, The Echo Machine: How Right-Wing Extremism Created a Post-Truth. The book is, the pub date is actually March 25th, so you can advance order it now at your favorite bookstore. DavidPakman.com is his website, and also David Pakman, Pakman, on Blue Sky. David, welcome back to the program. It's been a while since we've talked. I got an advanced copy of your book several months ago, and I've read it. I think it's just absolutely brilliant. Give us the elevator pitch here, the overview of what you're trying to communicate.
Really 3 points, and great to see you, Tom. Number one is that Trump is really a consequence of a process that started really with racist resentment as the civil rights era started in the late 1950s, and that going through Reagan, Gingrich taking over control of the House of Representatives in '94, Bush, resentment against Obama. Really, this is the path that led to Trump, number one. Number two, that a lot of the problems that we're often told by the American right wing that we just can't solve, we're too big of a country to do what Scandinavia does, and we're too mixed a country to do what Portugal does, that's really not true. And we look at 5 different progressive successes of social democracy. And then number three, that a lot of the problems we're facing, once people are 40 and engaged in politics, they're tough to fix. They really need to be fixed much earlier with critical thinking and media literacy. And schools are really failing kind of by Republican design to teach those things.
There was a fascinating interview between Christian Amanpour and a Russian political analyst who's outside of the Soviet, or outside of Russia now, in which he said that when Gorbachev essentially told the people of the Soviet Union that communism doesn't work any longer, that it was inevitable that the USSR would collapse. That would be the end of it. And that what Putin believes right now, and this analyst said he thinks Trump believes this too, is that if you can convince Americans that democracy doesn't work either, that American democracy, that a pluralistic society, racially, religiously, socially, culturally, economically integrated society doesn't work, that a three-part branch of government with checks and balances, if you can convince people that all of that doesn't work, then what you're doing is you're establishing the foundation for the Putinization of America, for turning America into Russia. To what extent, A, would you agree with that thesis? And B, if so, when did that message start becoming part of right-wing media? Because I don't recall, I recall the backlash in the 50s. I'm a lot older than you. I remember Brown, I don't remember Brown v. Board. I was 3 years old, but I remember the giant billboards, impeach Earl Warren, were all over Michigan when I was growing up as a kid. I remember the colored-only signs at Jack Tar Hotel in downtown Lansing. And I remember the blowback, against the civil rights movement. But I don't remember Republicans back in the day, back in the 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, saying government doesn't work until Reagan came along, basically.
I think that's exactly right. And I've got a book behind me, Waves of Rancor, which is out of print, but it's an excellent story of how AM radio started to be taken over by right-wing interests, and how it started with churches also jumping in on low-power FM radio station licenses. And that, combined with the sort of Reagan era, is exactly when that started. And I do agree with your assessment about the Putinization. And more broadly, it's this idea that if you turn people against a system, you make it function really poorly. And we saw it with Trump in the first term with Louis DeJoy and the post office. We're seeing it now with concerns that it's conceivable, depending on how far Musk and Trump get with Doge, that there could be delays or interruptions to Social Security disability payments, or that instead of taking 9 months to get your initial benefits, that it could take much longer. All these things make people say this system isn't working well, and that creates a pretext for maybe saying, I don't know, maybe we should privatize. Maybe elements of this would be better served by private interests, at least as far as Trump and Musk see it. And I do think that when that became prevalent was with the advent of AM radio in its sort of modern format during the Reagan era.
Yeah, I'm with you. So if we look at the people who funded all this stuff, I mean, you know, the high-profile guys, of course, in the early days were the Koch brothers, but before them, it was the Hunt brothers down in Texas. Those were the people that Dwight Eisenhower wrote about in his 1957 letter to his brother Ed. You know, their number is small and they are stupid. And you know, since then, we've seen not just other American right-wing billionaires, but right-wing billionaires from around the world throwing money in to these kind of campaigns and these kind of things. You got the Saudi prince Mohammed bin Salman and his buddies, his family, helping Elon Musk finance the purchase of Twitter, for example. So what is in it for these billionaires? Is it that they just cynically don't like democracy? Is it that they really believe, you know, the Ayn Rand theory that, you know, all good things come from private enterprise and all bad things come from the state? Is it, you know, what is motive? Is there a singular motivation?
I don't think there's a singular motivation, but I do think that at the end of the day, if we wanted to boil it down, it would be ultimately what's best for me. And what sort of infrastructure and framework can I create that would be most useful to my interests? And this is now not in the book, but it's something I've been talking about a lot recently, which is the 2024 election, including the last 6 months of the year, really showed us the sort of cashing of the checks that had been written with regard to the media ecosystem that the right's been building for a very long time. I was fortunate enough to be invited to go meet with top Biden administration officials, including Biden himself, in December, right? So after Harris had already lost, after it was too late to create the sort of community media ecosystem that Turning Point USA and Daily Wire and others created, and after Trump and Republicans really took advantage of it by appearing on these programs and appearing regularly. And we talked about the fact that we simply do not have on the left that which exists on the right. And as you're pointing out, it goes back a very long time. There just isn't an equivalent funding structure. And so all of the things I write about in the book ideologically and from an educational standpoint are critical. But also at some point, if we are just completely overpowered financially, it's going to be very difficult to change that status quo.
We're speaking with David Pakman. He's got a new book out, The Echo Machine, How Right-Wing Extremism Created a Post-Truth. He's the host of the David Pakman Show, davidpakman.com, Pakman. David, I think one of the driving dynamics here is that, well, let me just tell you a quick story. A couple of years ago, back 6-8 years ago, I just revealed. A United States senator, who shall remain unnamed, invited me to his office to a meeting with a billionaire who owned about 800 radio stations. And the senator said, you know, why don't you put Thom's show on some of your stations? You've got, you know, 300 or 400 of these stations are carrying right-wing programming all day long. Shouldn't you have a little variety? And the guy said, just bluntly, he said, I'll never put anybody on here who wants to raise my taxes. Then a couple of months after that, we had Morris Pearl on the program, the co-founder of the Patriotic Millionaires. And he made the point that he and his fellow wealthy guys who are funding Democrats are actually funding politicians who are promising to raise their taxes. And that is a very difficult dynamic, particularly for people who are primarily motivated by money, which is most billionaires. So how do we deal with that? I mean, we used to have guardrails that were put into place, you know, from the Tillman Act in 1907 that made it a federal felony for any corporation to give money to any candidate for federal office, to the campaign finance limits from the 1970s, you know, that came out of the Nixon bribery scandals. But that all got blown up with Citizens United.
I don't think there's one solution, but one of the greatest kind of inoculating forces that exists against falling for this stuff in the first place is if kids just start learning how to decipher media messages for themselves, how to think critically, how to evaluate whether an argument makes sense, whether they're looking at a primary source when they're looking at some kind of report or commentary or news, or whether they're looking at opinion. It's such basic stuff. And for the book, I look at how Finland does it. And I don't think it will shock some of your audience to hear that Finnish high school students are better at media literacy in Spanish as their second language than many American high schoolers are just at media literacy in English. And
right.
the degree to which we have fallen behind by design. And again, we talked about making a system dysfunctional to make people oppose it. This is why the state boards of education have eliminated a lot of this curricula, precisely because 10-year-olds know how to decipher media messages. It's much less likely they were ever believe, for example, in trickle-down economics and the idea that cutting taxes for the rich and corporations is the way to improve the lives of the average person. And so there's significant motivation to keep that out of schools. And I think that that's a big area to start.
Yeah, I totally get it. We have 45 seconds till we hit a hard break here, David. We're talking with David Pakman. He's got a new book out, The Echo Machine. What's your call for action? In addition to bringing you the Thom Hartmann Program here on Free Speech TV and Video Media Online, we also have a whole set of ways you can interact with us and tools you can use to spread the word about the importance of democracy and the threats to it in our republic. First, there's your daily homework. Sue Nethercutt puts together a daily email newsletter that has a link to every story I discuss on the air, so you can find my sources and you can share them with your friends. It's free and you can sign up. Second, I publish my daily take every day over at the HartmannReport.com website. That's also free if you want the daily 5 days a week rant in your inbox. No ads either. Third, we have the podcasts. There's the free 1-hour version of our daily show that's advertising supported. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts normally. And then there's also the podcast of the entire 3-hour show with no advertisements, and that's available by subscription over at ThomHartmann.com. So check them all out at ThomHartmann.com and HartmannReport.com.
We say fight back!
Well, we continue moving along with the Free Speech TV Fund Drive. Only a couple days left. The time is shrinking. The opportunities are closing. This is your last chance, or we're getting close to it, to your last chance to become part of something bigger than you, to become part of Free Speech TV, to become part of this television network, to become a supporter of democracy. The revolutionary figure highlight for today is Ibrahim Traore, who is the young leader of Burkina Faso. He took power at just 34 years old. Unlike many before him, his leadership wasn't about personal power, but about freeing his people from neo-colonial control. He stood firmly against, or stands firmly against, foreign exploitation, particularly Western influence over African resources, and seeks true independence for his nation and his people. He follows in the revolutionary footsteps of Thomas Sankara, a beloved leader who fought for self-sufficiency and anti-imperialism way back in the 1980s. And he isn't stopping at the liberation of Burkina Faso. He wants liberation of all of Africa, quoting Kwame Nkrumah, the first leader of an independent African state, Ghana, who said that the independence of Ghana is meaningless without the independence of all of Africa. I would add that my radio program is, I'm not sure if it's still carried this minute, but for many years it was was carried by a radio station in Ghana. At Free Speech TV, we understand that the struggle for justice and sovereignty, like the one that Traore and Kwame championed, is a global cause. And we stand with movements for independence, self-sufficiency, resistance to authoritarianism, and white supremacy. Stand with us. Stand with Free Speech TV. Free Speech TV is for all the people, those who are fighting against tyranny, exploitation, and for the liberation of all marginalized communities. Here's a clip of Kwame Nkrumah.
As I said, our greatest danger stems from disunity and the inability to see that the realization of our hopes and aspirations, the realization of our objective of total African independence, and of our future progress and prosperity is inextricably bound up with the necessity to unify our policy and actions with the continued struggle for independence and the greater task of economic and social reconstruction beyond it. We must therefore face the issue of African unity now. For only unity will make the artificial boundaries and regional demarcations imposed by colonialism obsolete and superfluous. African unity will thus provide an effective remedy for border disputes and internecine troubles. In a united Africa, there could be no frontier claims between Ethiopia and Somalia, or between Zanzibar and Kenya, Guinea or Liberia, or between Ghana, Togoland, and the Ivory Coast. Because we would regard ourselves as one great continental family of nations. The leaders, it must be confessed, do not see the struggle of their brother Africans as part of their own struggle. Even if they did, they would not be free to express their solidarity. These rifts are consciously created by the imperialists between the Africans, where they can sit back and watch with slight satisfaction.
Yeah, there you go. So, supporting Free Speech TV, there's two different ways to do it. One is to make a monthly contribution. The other is to make a one-time contribution. You can do both at the same time, and I encourage you to. The monthly contribution can be as small or as substantial as you would like. It can be $5, it could be $500, depending on what works for you. And the one-time gifts, with a $20 one-time gift, you have your choice of the bumper sticker, Elect a Clown, Expect a Circus, or the This Is Not Normal bumper sticker. With a $120 gift, you have your choice of the book by Sonali, Talking About Abolition, or my book, The Hidden Name, my most recent book, autographed by me, by the author. With a $1,000 gift, there's the Hidden History book collection, all 10 of the Hidden History books. It's a discount, right? 10 books for $100 each instead of one for $120. And of course, the money goes to Free Speech TV. And with a $1,000 gift, you can also come here to Portland and hang out with us during the last hour of the show, and I'll take you to lunch, with a little meet and greet here in Portland if you'd like to hop on an airplane or whatever works for you. So those are the bottom lines. Those are the ways that you can give. The specific, or those are what you can give. The way to do it is to either go to freespeech.org/donate, or just freespeech.org and click the donate button, or call 877-378-8669. 877-378-8669. And if you're going to try to do both, give a one-time gift and make a commitment, that's best to call the phone number to do that. Although I'm guessing you could probably do it with 2 visits to the website. But check it out. We need your help. We're still behind. Please call now or go to freespeech.org and make your contribution. Thank you.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Hey, happy Wednesday. It's the midweek, and so we will have midweek with, Middays with Mark is what we've been calling it, right? For I don't know how many years. But Congressman Mark Pocan will be with us, but in the second hour of our program, instead of the first hour as normal, he's got, schedule stuff. So in the second hour of our program, Congressman Pocan will be with us for the full hour, taking your calls, a National Progressive Townhall meeting. In the first hour of our program, I want to get into Donald Trump's America, where even U.S. citizens can now be dragged away without a trial. Also, kind of a news summary, how Putin played Trump, Trump's war on student loans, Trump illegally fires Federal Trade Commission commissioners, and a Democrat is now formally calling for Schumer to step down as leader of the Senate Republicans. We'll talk about all those things in just a moment. Also, a crazy alert, the Republican who introduced multiple anti-trans pieces of legislation in the Minnesota legislature and this bizarre Trump derangement syndrome bill has now been arrested for soliciting a minor for prostitution. Strange stuff. As I mentioned in our second hour, it's going to be Congressman Pocan for the entire hour taking your calls. In the third hour, my Substack writing colleague, Heidi Siegmund Cuda, who publishes a couple of just brilliant newsletters, the Bombshell reports on Russian interference that should have saved America. Why didn't we pay attention to the warnings that we were getting from our own intelligence agencies and our own congressional reports? And do judges need to step up their game? Ha! You betcha. Kind of revisiting a topic from a couple of days ago, but now with added urgency, as they say. But my op-ed over at HartmannReport.com, my daily take, is titled Trump's America, where even U.S. citizens can now be dragged away without a trial. This is absolutely wild. And a lot of this, I believe, tracks back to the Laken-Riley Act. The Laken-Riley Act, you will recall, was passed with the help of 42 members of the House of Representatives, Democrats, and 12, as I recall, Democratic, maybe 14 Democratic members of the United States Senate. And what it says is that ICE, it empowers, the Immigration Customs Enforcement, it empowers ICE to arrest people on U.S. soil if they suspect that that person may be here illegally. Now, they don't need any proof. And according to ICE, they can deport people without any proof, which is exactly what happened last week to roughly 250 Venezuelan nationals, or alleged Venezuelan. We don't even know. We have no idea how many of these people might be U.S. citizens, how many of them might be Mexicans, how many of them might be Venezuelans. It appears that so far, none of them have been convicted of any crimes. In fact, the White House came out and said, well, they've been in the country a short time. See, these are, and therefore they haven't had time to commit crimes. This is like Minority Report, right? The old Tom Cruise movie where we're gonna arrest people before they commit a crime to prevent them from committing the crime. I mean, this is just nuts. And I mean, it's wrong. It's unconstitutional. It's illegal. It's a violation of the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th Amendments to the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, or at least those parts of the Bill of Rights. And, Thom Hartmann says, I don't care what judges say. The judges are pushing back, but no judge yet so far has had the courage to hold a Trump lawyer, an administration lawyer, in contempt. And, they have the power to do that. We'll get into that a little later, and as I mentioned a couple of days ago, but this is crazy what's going on. A U.S. citizen from Chicago was among 22 people who were arrested and detained by ICE last week. The U.S. Government Accountability Office found that during Trump's first term, an estimated 600 U.S. citizens were arrested and an estimated 70 U.S. citizens were deported. But this Laken-Riley Act has put this on steroids. Here's a couple of stories. Fabian Schmidt, a German-born engineer, has lived in the United States for nearly 2 decades, legally working, paying taxes, and contributing to his community. The guy's got a green card, right? None of that mattered when he returned home from a trip abroad. As soon as he landed at Logan Airport in Boston, ICE agents pulled him aside. His green card renewal was flagged for some unknown reason. No explanation, no opportunity to clarify, just a red mark in a government system. That was all it took. ICE stripped him of his clothes, subjected him to hours of aggressive questioning, locked him in a detention center, threw him into an ice-cold shower, left him shivering on the concrete floor, naked, humiliated, and terrified. For days, his mother, Astrid, desperately tried to find him. Keep in mind, this is a guy who's lived in the country for 20 years, legally, is still living here legally. She called ICE, Customs and Border Protection, and any agency that might give her an answer. They all ignored her or outright lied to her, claiming they had no record of her son. When she finally learned where he was, he said, they treat us like animals. He was barely holding it together. And why? Well, they later said, oh, it was a bureaucratic error. Yeah, right. Jessica Brosche, a German tattoo artist visiting the United States. She had a return ticket. She had a legal permission. She had the visa under the visa waiver program. She had a valid German passport. But ICE decided that she just might try to work while visiting under the Lake and Riley Act. You know, suspicion is enough. Once inside, the nightmare deepened. They threw her into a cell with no bed and no access to legal assistance. For 8 straight days, they kept her in solitary confinement. The lights never dimmed, and the sounds of other detainees screaming in despair echoed through the walls. This is one of these for-profit prisons that Trump loves, that Republicans love, because they kick back, massive campaign contributions to Republicans. She started hallucinating, her grip on reality slipping. Desperate to feel something, anything real, she punched the walls until her knuckles bled. Meanwhile, her best friend Amelia was frantically searching for her. ICE refused to confirm her location or even acknowledge that she existed. No charges, no trial, no legal recourse, just silence. Consider Jasmine Mooney. She's a Canadian actor who starred in the American Pie series. She's a Canadian businesswoman who always played by the rules. She secured a job offer in California, completed all the visa paperwork, followed every U.S. immigration law to the letter. But that didn't stop ICE from shackling her, chaining her wrists, ankles, and waist as if she was a violent offender. For days, she was trapped in a brutal private for-profit detention facility, laying on the bare floor with nothing but a crinkled foil sheet for warmth. Then in the dead of night, ICE dragged her from her cell, bound her in chains again, and forced her onto a bus with dozens of other women. They drove for hours, denying them food, water, or bathroom breaks. By the time she arrived at another private for-profit facility, she'd been awake for 24 hours, was too weak to stand. To this day, ICE won't explain why she was detained. She tells her horrifying story to The Guardian today. You can read it at theguardian.com. She said, I was placed in a real jail unit, 2 levels of cells surrounding a common area, just like in the movies. I was put in a tiny cell alone with a bunk and a toilet. There were around 140 of us in our unit. Many women had lived and worked in the U.S. legally for years, but had overstayed their visas, often after reapplying and then being denied. They had all been detained without warning. This is the bottom line. ICE agents don't need proof. They only need the power to act, and Trump has given it to them. I mean, Canadians, Germans, we've done this now to Canadian citizens, to Germans. They're starting to freak out. The tourism business in this country is collapsing. ProPublica documented yesterday how a 21-year-old U.S. citizen born in Philadelphia was dragged off to detention, how a 10-year-old American citizen girl was deported, interrupting her chemo for brain cancer. An estimated 600 U.S. citizens detained during Trump's first term. Mistaken? No. ICE has become the protection squad. The German word for protection squad is Schutzstaffel. If that's familiar to you, it's typically abbreviated by by 2 letters SS. The protection squad. And they've been given this just basically unlimited power. And now, they've sent these people down to El Salvador in defiance of a federal judge. Marco Rubio retweets, a tweet that says, oopsie, too late. A president who can deport anyone, even in violation of a judge's order, can also arrest anyone. ISIS, they did this here in Portland back, 5 years ago. They were driving around in vans with no markings on them, out of uniform, no markings on them as individuals, literally kidnapping people off the streets of Portland, beating them up or terrorizing them and then just dumping them in other places as ways to disrupt protesters. Are they going to start doing this again? I think if protests really get to be a big thing, they will. You know, a judge stopped Trump from doing that back in 2005. If he does it today, the question isn't who the ICE protection squads and other federal police agencies will target next. It's who will be left to stop them. This can't stand. This is not America. We are turning into Russia, that country whose leader Trump so loves. We'll be right back.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
16 minutes past the hour. More of the news of the day in just a moment. Stay with us. And welcome back. Philip in Ocala, Florida. Hey, Philip, what's on your mind today?
You know, I want you to preface your remarks about Trump by disclosing drug addict. When he had the television show, The Apprentice, he made everyone sign a non-disclosure agreement.
Right.
Don't talk. And then it expired about, I don't know, maybe 4 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
And it was disclosed that he was on cocaine on every show, and when he couldn't get cocaine, he was on Adderall.
Yeah, I've read these reports from people who worked on the show.
And here's the thing: how many people facing 47 felonies in a courtroom would fall asleep during their own trial?
Well, he's in his late 70s.
No. He didn't get enough Adderall.
Oh, you think
that's why he's up at?
Yeah,
that's why he's up at 2:00 in the morning.
Entirely possible, Philip. Entirely. In fact, I would say probable. And look at his son Don Jr., who's constantly going. You know, I mean, he's like, you know, his nose has been burned out by cocaine or something sometimes.
Well, the other thing is, I want to build on what you said, and it's happening here in Florida, or it was happening. The Pasco County Sheriff, I'm reading here, ran an unconstitutional program harassing kids and their parents because of a glorified Excel spreadsheet that predicted they would commit future crimes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Were they mostly Hispanic kids by any chance, or black kids?
I have no idea. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
And the sheriff's office has settled, agreeing to end the program and acknowledging constitutional violations, but he had to be sued.
Yeah. Well, that's what's
and I think there was a financial settlement too.
Yeah.
If you want to find a fascist state, come to Florida.
No, you know what Ron DeSantis has been doing, particularly around voting. I mean, he dropped the black vote in Florida by more than 10%, simply by arresting a bunch of black voters, and even though none of them actually, you know, were convicted of anything, and parading them in front of TV cameras and pounding on it for days. Literally, 10% of black voters in Florida. In fact, it was more than 10%. I don't remember the exact percentage. 13, 14, something like that percent of black vote, you know, dropped following that event. That's why the Republicans still control Florida.
Yeah. Here's the other thing. Florida doesn't make anything. We don't make cars, computers, nothing.
Right.
It's an agricultural state beyond the tourism.
Yeah.
And Florida produces watermelons, strawberries, you name it, right?
Yep.
So what's he going to do? He's going to go out and arrest all the Hispanics, or what they used to call in the 1930s, Untermensch, subhumans.
Right.
And then what are we going to do? Go on a 100% meat diet because we can't get vegetables and fruit anymore.
Well, you guys have cattle ranches there too.
Yeah.
And lots of chickens. No, I totally get it, Philip. And the damage that DeSantis has done to Florida is just, you know, beginning to dawn on people. And now with Trump, with ICE, I mean, this story about this Canadian actress, this is a huge deal. And I'm telling you, Canadians are, you know, a large chunk of Florida's economy depends on Canadians coming down there in the winter. It ain't going to be happening going forward. Philip, I got to run, but thanks for the call. It's nice to hear from you. Appreciate it. Thanks for watching Free Speech TV. I'll be right back. Missed my opening rant today? It's usually published over at HartmannReport.com, where you can read it and share it with your friends for free. Check it out, HartmannReport.com. You know, other countries enjoy benefits like free health care in college, modern mass transit, affordable housing, food, and drugs. They also have inexpensive internet and phone service without companies listening and selling their information. Schools that don't need to mention school shooters. Streets and parks filled with pedestrians and children instead of tents and homeless people. We, on the other hand, have the world's largest collection of billionaires. Most Americans probably didn't realize this was the choice they were making back in the election of 1980 when Reagan and Bush promised morning in America. But here we are. We have been just basically sold out to the billionaires by all these years of Republican, Reaganomics. What do we do about it? Well, there's a lot we can do about it, and it starts with getting politically active. There's a great op-ed about this over at HartmannReport.com. It's titled, America Chose Wealth Over Well-Being. Check it out.
Step off the plane, you fear, land of the free, are you sure it's still there? Boots on the ground, cold steel in their hands. They don't need a reason, they don't need a plan. No lawyer, no warning, no light in the dark. A number, a file, a disappearing mark, and the faces just turn, afraid to resist as another one's dragged into the abyss. No trial, no mercy, no way to escape. You scream, but the walls never echo your name. They came for the others, now they come for you. When the law is a weapon, what can you do?
Welcome back. So Glenn Ivey, a congressperson from Maryland, told constituents yesterday that Chuck Schumer's refusal decision to allow the Republican bill to go forward, refusal to fight it, it means he should step down. Glenn Ivey said, I respect Chuck Schumer. I think he had a great career, but it may be time for Senate Democrats to get a new leader. This was in a town hall, and it got basically a standing ovation. I saw Chuck Schumer last night on Chris Hayes' show, and his message basically was, it's not so bad yet. And when it gets bad, Americans will be in the streets, and we'll all know, so don't worry, I don't have to do anything, the American people will do it. That was essentially the message. Maybe you saw the same thing. Feel free to call and talk to me about it. But I'm doubling down. I believe it was Monday, I published a piece saying it's time for Chuck Schumer to leave leadership. It's beyond time for Chuck Schumer to leave leadership. And now he's out there hawking his book on anti-Semitism, which, from what I heard on Chris Hayes last night, sounds again like just, hey, let's defend Netanyahu and let's go after people who criticize Netanyahu, which, in my mind has nothing to do with anti-Semitism. So anyhow, there's that. Trump's sham plan is not about assisting Ukraine. He's trying to help Russia. He just minutes ago completed a brief conversation with President Zelensky after spending 2 hours yesterday on the phone having phone sex with Vladimir Putin. And I mean, what do you do for 2 hours on the phone with somebody, right? I mean, Putin is completely rewriting this guy's worldview. Putin has convinced Donald Trump that the only reason the European Union exists is to hurt America. Honest to God, Trump has repeated this 3 times now. This is an old Putin thing. This so-called ceasefire that Putin proposed, it's a smokescreen. He says, we'll do a ceasefire on energy infrastructure. What he's talking about is he doesn't want Ukraine attacking Russian energy infrastructure. Last week, they attacked the largest refinery in Russia. It's starting to hurt Russia. That was over 1,000 miles away from Ukraine. They've got a hell of a good drone technology. Putin is also saying the United States must halt all military aid, all intelligence sharing, and Ukraine must stop mobilizing troops. While Putin doesn't have to do any of that stuff. I mean, this is just complete BS. Putin is playing Trump for a sucker, or Trump is going along with it enthusiastically because Trump hates democracies. He hates our democracy. I mean, he came out this morning and basically said Canada is evil and Russia is wonderful. He hates democracies. He loves autocracies. We saw this for 4 years when he was president. He'd go to these meetings of democratic nations and basically sneer at people and shove them around and trash talk them. And then he'd go to Kim Jong-un and kiss the guy, hug him, and, oh, my best friend. And Putin, oh, I understand. We know each other well. And President Xi, come on down to Mar-a-Lago and I'll show you some classified documents right in front of the whole world. We have a guy running this country who doesn't believe in American democracy. He doesn't believe in democracy anywhere in the world, and it's become so obvious. Meanwhile, student loans, the Federal Trade Commission, and a Republican in Minnesota. I'll tell you about that and pick up your calls right after this.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
Speaking the truth, Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, and Elon Musk would really rather you didn't know all about. I'll be right back with you. Well, we continue moving along with the Free Speech TV Fund Drive. Only a couple days left. The time is shrinking. The opportunities are closing. This is your last chance, or we're getting close to it, to your last chance to become part of something bigger than you, to become part of Free Speech TV, to become part of this television network, to become a supporter of democracy. The revolutionary figure highlight for today is Ibrahim Traoré, who is the young leader of Burkina Faso. He took power at just 34 years old. Unlike many before him, his leadership wasn't about personal power, but about freeing his people from neo-colonial control. He stood firmly against, or stands firmly against, foreign exploitation, particularly Western influence over African resources, and seeks true independence for his nation and his people. He follows in the revolutionary footsteps of Thomas Sankara, a beloved leader who fought for self-sufficiency and anti-imperialism way back in the 1980s. And he isn't stopping at the liberation of Burkina Faso. He wants liberation of all of Africa, quoting Kwame Nkrumah, the first leader of the an independent African state, Ghana, who said that the independence of Ghana is meaningless without the independence of all of Africa. I would add that my radio program is, I'm not sure if it's still carried this minute, but for many years it was carried by a radio station in Ghana. At Free Speech TV, we understand that the struggle for justice and sovereignty, like the one that Traoré and Kwame championed, is a global cause. And we stand with movements for independence, self-sufficiency, resistance to authoritarianism, and white supremacy. Stand with us. Stand with Free Speech TV. Free Speech TV is for all the people, those who are fighting against tyranny, exploitation, and for the liberation of all marginalized communities. Here's a clip of Kwame Nkrumah.
As I said, our greatest danger stems from disunity and the inability to see that the realization of our hopes and aspirations, the realization of our objective of total African independence, and of our future progress and prosperity is inextricably bound up with the necessity to unify our policy and actions in connection with the continued struggle for independence and the greater task of economic and social reconstruction beyond it. We must therefore face the issue of African unity now, for only unity will make the artificial boundaries and regional demarcations imposed by colonialism obsolete and superfluous. African unity will thus provide an effective remedy for border disputes and internecine troubles. In a united Africa, there could be no frontier claims between Ethiopia and Somalia, or between Zanzibar and Kenya, Guinea or Liberia, or between Ghana, Togoland, and the Ivory Coast. Because we would regard ourselves as one great continental family of nations. The leaders, it must be confessed, do not see the struggle of their brother Africans as part of their own struggle. Even if they did, they would not be free to express their solidarity. These rifts are consciously created by the imperialists between the Africans, where they can sit back and watch with slight satisfaction.
Yeah, there you go. So, supporting Free Speech TV, there's two different ways to do it. One is to make a monthly contribution. The other is to make a one-time contribution. You can do both at the same time, and I encourage you to. The monthly contribution can be as small or as substantial as you would like. It can be $5, it could be $500, depending on what works for you. And the one-time gifts, with a $20 one-time gift, you have your choice of the bumper sticker, Elect a Clown, Expect a Circus, or the This Is Not Normal bumper sticker. With a $120 gift, you have your choice of the book by Sonali talking about abolition, or my book, The Hidden History of the American Dream, my most recent book, autographed by me, by the author. With a $1,000 gift, there's the Hidden History book collection, all 10 of the Hidden History books. It's a discount, right? 10 books for $100 each instead of one for $120. And of course, the money goes to Free Speech TV. And with a $1,000 gift, you can also come here to Portland and hang out with us during the last hour of the show, and I'll take you to lunch, with a little meet and greet here in Portland if you'd like to hop on an airplane or whatever works for you. So those are the bottom lines. Those are the ways that you can give. The specific, or those are what you can give. The way to do it is to either go to freespeech.org/donate, or just freespeech.org and click the donate button, or call 877-378-8669. 877-378-8669. And if you're going to try to do both, give a one-time gift and make a commitment, that's best to call the phone number to do that. Although I'm guessing you could probably do it with 2 visits to the website. But check it out. We need your help. We're still behind. Please call now or go to freespeech.org and make your contribution. Thank you. Did you know that every weekday we send out an email before the show giving you all the topics coming up so you can be fully informed and ready to interact with our program? Or that after the show we send out Sue's Stack, a list of every topic I've discussed along with clickable hot links to every source of information I've shared with you on the air? It's all completely free and available over at thom.tv, THOM.tv. Check it out.
1943, they studied a man, a weakling who rose a dangerous plan. Hitler's lies spread like fire through fear. Repeat them enough and the truth disappears. It happened once, don't turn a blind eye. History repeats, don't let it slide by. It can't happen here, the warning's loud and clear. When power grabs hold and the truth disappears, don't look away, don't let it come near, 'cause it can't happen, yeah, it can happen here.
Welcome back. So student loans already sucked, and now the GOP is making them worse. This is amazing. If you have a student loan, and there are millions and millions of us who do, or whose kids do, all 3 of my kids have student loans. Last month, in response to a Republican lawsuit, you'll recall, Joe Biden had this thing called I believe it was called the SAVE Act. Yeah, Saving on a Valuable Education Plan, SAVE Act. And what it did was it said that if you have student loans and you are low income, we will adjust the amounts of your monthly payments without increasing the interest penalty that you're going to pay, so that you can afford to pay those loans. It might take you 100 years, but you'll be able to afford to pay your loans. Well, Republicans sued at the 8th Circuit, U.S. Court of Appeals for the 8th Circuit, and they won. As Ashley Morgan, an attorney in Austin, Texas, told local TV station KVUE, quote, I saw that my payments are going to more than quadruple from $507 a month to $2,463 a month starting in April. What do I do now? Do I sell my house or sell my car? The lawsuit also led the Department of Education, this from Oliver Willis over at Daily Kos, which administers student loan programs, to remove forms from the repayment for the repayment plan from their website. So borrowers cannot apply or even certify their income. And to make it even worse, Trump is trying to abolish the Department of Education, which administers many of these loans. Just hand the loans over to the big banks, and they'll give more big campaign contributions to Republican politicians. That's $1.6 trillion in student debt, most of it held by people under 40 here in the United States. This literally does not exist in any other advanced democracy in the world. Every other country sends their young people to college for free. Or in some cases, like Germany and Denmark and Switzerland, actually pays them to go to college. Meanwhile, Alvaro Bedoya and Rebecca Slaughter were fired as commissioners for the Federal Trade Commission. Bedoya's 7-year term, would have expired in 2026. Slaughter's would have expired in 2029. Trump does not have the legal authority to fire these people. This was decided by the Supreme Court in 1933 when FDR tried to fire William Humphreys, who was an FTC commissioner, and the Supreme Court ruled, no, you can't do that. It's a 7-year term. They have to serve 7 years unless you can prove that they committed a crime. And, what's going to happen here? We'll see. It sure looks like the Trump administration is going to defy the courts again. When are the courts going to stand up? Meanwhile, a crazy alert, I think. Justin Eichholm is a Minnesota state senator. He co-sponsored Senate SF 2531, a bill that would ban transgender women from sports. The bill stipulates there is, quote, a dispute regarding if student's female sex. If there is, the student must present a physician's statement based on internal and external reproductive anatomy. Yeah. So this guy is, he hates trans people. And he also introduced a piece of legislation last week that would require the American Psychological Association or some entity, I don't know, or the state of Minnesota, to classify, to Trump derangement syndrome and classify it as a mental illness. He says, this is from the legislation, quote, the syndrome is characterized by the acute onset of paranoia in otherwise normal persons that is in reaction to the policies and presidencies of President Donald J. Trump. Symptoms may include Trump-induced general hysteria, quack, 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 intense hostility, overt acts against anyone supporting Trump, or anything that symbolizes him. Well, Senator Eichhorn was busted yesterday and arrested and booked for online trying to get a 17-year-old into bed in exchange for money. That's called soliciting a minor for prostitution. Yeah, welcome to the GOP. You're Republicans at work. All right, so what's on your mind here today? Michael in Bronx, New York. Just a reminder, by the way, that at the top of the hour, we're going to be, for the entire second hour of the program, Congressman Mark Pocan will be with us for our Middays with Mark hour session. So, you can get in line with your questions for Congressman Pocan. Michael in Bronx, what's on your mind today, Michael?
Greetings, Tom. I just want to piggyback on what you were saying about Chuck Schumer. And I met the guy in person. I shook his hand prior to marching in the Throgs Neck section of the Bronx St. Patrick's Day Parade some almost 10 years ago. I would say God bless him for his years of service in Congress, yes. But his old-fashioned approach, we can't have that anymore, especially with this career criminal that is invading the White House.
Yeah, Chuck Schumer is in denial.
What should have been done on Friday is that he should have said that in no way, shape, or form will the Democratic Party take part in any lawlessness against the people, the lawlessness pushed by Trump and Musk. And if there was a shutdown, it would be totally on Republicans. So stop asking them what are we going to do to avert a shutdown, because he says that he thinks that the media will blame him on it. You know, I just gave you some fighting points, Mr. Schumer, and other Democrats that went along with this. And as far as Republicans go, they say they go, they're catering to Trump because he don't want Trump to primary them. What makes you think that the very constituents that you're pissing off won't primary you?
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about AOC primarying Chuck Schumer. And I don't know if you caught it. Did you see Chris Hayes interviewing him last night?
Those are the leaders. I'm sorry?
Did you see Chris Hayes' interview of Schumer last night?
I did not. I only saw...
basically, what Schumer said was, we're not yet to the point where we need to fight like hell. And then Chris Hayes asked or pointed out, basically, what I've been saying all along, which if Schumer was right, and he may well be, if shutting down the government would have been a disaster of biblical proportions, why wasn't he talking about that for the 5 months in advance when he knew this was coming? Why didn't he get public opinion on his side? Why didn't he force the Republicans to negotiate with the Democrats? Hayes asked him this question essentially 3 times, and Schumer had basically no answer for it. He just changed the subject. Michael, spot on. Thank you very much for your thoughts on your senator. Kevin in Frederick, Maryland. Hey, Kevin, what's up? Kevin in Frederick, Maryland? Oh, Kevin just vanished. Sometimes people try to hit the unmute button and they hit the hang up button by accident, I'm guessing. Donna in Zionville, North Carolina. Hey, Donna, what's on your mind today?
Hey, good morning, Tom. So I attended a Watauga Indivisible meeting yesterday. Unfortunately, the venue was on it. It got filled pretty quick within a 24 or 48-hour period. And this was for Virginia Fox. I played Virginia Fox in the blow-up chicken costume.
As in, who's afraid of?
It was very fun.
Who's afraid of?
Huh?
As in, Virginia Fox, the Congresswoman.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay,
yeah.
I'm sorry. I was thinking of the old, and in fact, I probably have the wrong name. That was Virginia Woolf, wasn't it? I'm mixing up my wild animals.
Yeah, she is total MAGA. When I used to live in Washington State and Bonnie Lake, we're the ones that drove cross-country in the electric car, which we switched to a Lightning, which we love. I remember thinking, oh, my God, I'm so glad she's not my congresswoman.
Yeah.
And now she is. But this Indivisible group only started less than 2 months ago, and it's going strong. It's just, it's a wonderful outlet, and even Republicans got up, old not people that had been Republicans,
right? Former Republicans,
talked, yeah, and I hope there's a lot more of them.
My sense of it is, Donna, that the winds are shifting. By the way, my son has a Ford F-150 Lightning, the electric truck. Did you say that that's what you have?
Yes.
Yeah, he loves it. Do you?
0% interest. Huh?
He loves it. Do you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we've only had it a couple of weeks, but we're building in what they call mountains out here.
Yeah.
We were just in the foothills.
Yeah. No,
it's Mount Rainier, so these look like hills to me.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that truck is like
we need a 4-wheel drive.
Yeah. No, I get it. That truck is like a spaceship. I mean, it's so advanced. It's so beautiful. Ford really hit one out of the park with that one. Donna, I got to run, but thank you for the call.
What are you doing, Tom?
Sure. Yeah, I'll keep it up. Good talking to you. It's 45 minutes past the hour. I'll be back with more of your calls in just a moment. And a reminder that Congressman Pocan will be with us for the entire hour starting at the top of this hour. Or 6 minutes after the news. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
It's your media support group for We the People. I'll be right back with you. And welcome back, Beverly in Portland. Hey, Beverly, what's on your mind today?
Good morning, Tom.
Good morning.
I'm calling for all of us boomers that there's hundreds of thousands of us that adopted children from abroad. My daughter came from Calcutta, India, and she lives in a very red state, and she also happens to be gay. I'm worried that just because she's brown, that they might end up, she's got her Social Security, she's got her citizenship through the adoption process, but I'm worried about her, and can you calm me down?
Well, I think, generally speaking, for anybody whose skin is darker than yours and mine, Beverly, they're going to face challenges in this society, given that roughly half of the white men in the United States are clearly just flaming racists, and probably about that many white women. But that's always been the case. With regard to going after your daughter because she's a naturalized citizen, I doubt that. Although a month ago I would have said I don't think anybody with a green card has anything to worry about. And here we've got 3 stories of green card holders who have been detained, thrown in jail, or kicked out of the country. So the Overton window, as it were, the window of what the Trump administration and these right-wing fascists are willing to do, has been shifting hard to the right. But I would be just astonished if, does she have a passport?
Yeah, it's expired, but she does have...
She needs to get it renewed as quickly as possible, because increasingly they don't accept expired passports as legally. Beverly, I don't think she has anything to worry about. I would not, there's lots of things that are, there's a few things, I suppose, that are worth waking up at night over. This is probably not one of them. Just trust her common sense. Beverly, I got to move along, but thank you for the call. Good luck. And good on you for adopting a child. Laverne in Chicago. Hey, Laverne, what's up?
Hello. Hi, Tom.
Hey, Laverne.
I wanted to agree with the gentleman about Chuck Schumer needing to step down. Not just Chuck Schumer, but the House representatives that voted for that bill, along with the senators. I live in Chicago, and I will not be voting for Dick Durbin. I think it's time for him to step down as well. And another quick point, I wanted to thank you for doing a great job and continuing the fight with the rest of us. You keep us sane, and you keep us hopeful. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Laverne. Do you think that Dick Durbin's even going to run for re-election? I mean, he's a pretty old guy now, isn't he?
Yeah, yes, he is. I hope not. Maybe that's why he voted the way he did.
Yeah.
Because it's they have nothing to lose.
Well, I mean, it's entirely possible that Chuck Schumer is absolutely right. That shutting down the government would have been a terrible, terrible thing. But he should have spent the last 5 months telling us that.
That's true. Also, why didn't you fight to add some things that could help, Democrats? Why didn't you fight to have some of that crap thrown out and then said, okay, now we can talk about
my point.
Coming together, and if you put ours in, and we, then we can strike a deal. They just folded.
Yep.
And Fetterman, the guy Fetterman, I thought that guy was a
Fetterman is going to be this guy. Fetterman is going to be this generation's Kirsten Sinema. You watch. He's been massaged and seduced by the Republicans. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us. So between his tax cuts and crashing the debt ceiling and shifting billions of Treasury dollars into crypto and tariffs and all this other stuff, Trump is threatening to crash our economy. And he doesn't seem to be particularly worried about that. Why would that be? Well, first off, economic disasters are great excuses to cut taxes. Both Reagan and George W. Bush used recessions as their excuse to stimulate the economy by cutting trillions from the taxes of billionaires. Secondly, economic crises increase the tolerance for strongman governments. Hitler rode to power in Europe based on the Great Depression. And third, billionaires make a fortune when there's a market crash because they can buy all the stock that average people are trying to unload from their 401ks to pay the damn rent. There's a whole article about this that lays the whole thing out over at HartmannReport.com. It's titled Crashing the Economy, Trump's Blueprint for Power and Profit. Check it out.
In the shadows of the Kremlin's might, a deal was struck beneath the night. Whispers echo of a secret tie between the power and the spy. Does Putin own Trump? The question stands, a puppet dancing on Russian strands in the corridors where secrets seep. The truth lies buried dark and deep.
Welcome back. 52 minutes past the hour. Picking up your calls here. Juan in Los Angeles. Hey, Juan, what's on your mind today?
Hi, I just wanted to talk about what I would call the Noah's Ark of the billionaire class, which is Greenland. Besides the minerals, I really believe it connects the dots to the idea of the $5 million gold visas and to why they claim climate change is a hoax when they know it's real. They figure, well, why are we going to spend trillions of dollars fighting climate change, molest safety nets like Medicare, Social Security, etc., if we are essentially, due to AI and robotics, are soon to become useless eaters? When the 99% of the planet population becomes useless to them, then why are we going to spend money on them? Yeah. So Greenland is going to be the Noah's Ark of the billionaire class. That's why Trump wants it as a 51st state. It'll be the world's largest gated community. Where only if you have the money, the $5 million.
Yeah.
At this point, you're going to be outside of the wall, starving, under thirst, collapse of infrastructure, the starvation, disease, etc. Because when the infrastructure collapses, we are going to be in 140 degrees without electricity.
Yeah.
And if you look at immigration, if you look at the reality, like Al Gore said years ago, the closer you are to the equator, the worse it's going to be. So Greenland is going to be prime real estate. It's going to be basically the one place on Earth where if you have the money, you'll survive climate change. After climate change is over, Elon Musk and his multitude of kids will repopulate the planet, basically is a general idea. And this goes to why they're so in cahoots with the Saudis, why they're in cahoots with Putin, and all the other international cabal of billionaire oligarchs who are also planning on being on this Noah's Ark, or the super rich and the super powerful.
I can't dispute that, Juan. There's actually, by the way, the one thing that would throw a wrench in this is if the AMOC, you know, the great conveyor belt, the current that brings heat to the North Atlantic, if that shuts down, Greenland is going to become uninhabitable. It'll get so cold. It'll revert back to its Arctic status. But assuming that doesn't happen for another couple hundred years,
and the pristine of it,
right? But let me finish my thought here. But there is this ideology that has seized a lot of the Silicon Valley billionaires, and it is not getting anywhere. Yeah, he appears to be one of the proponents of it. Is not getting anywhere near enough coverage in the media. I've been looking for somebody who's an expert on this I can get on as a guest. Basically, it's the theory that government will be obsolete in the world of general artificial intelligence. When artificial intelligence makes the leap to being as smart as humans, it will no longer be necessary to have government because artificial intelligence will be the benevolent dictator, essentially. Will govern everything and will do it perfectly and well, and like you said, the rest of us will become useless eaters and slave labor. And they're trying to build cities to demonstrate this, to work these pseudo-libertarian network form of government cities. They've got some land in California, a bunch of billionaires, and these are people who, when they were teenagers, read Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged, and thought, Gulch, yes, let's go. This will be so cool, and
celebrationism.
Yeah, no, it's accelerationism is one of their things. The whole networked nation is part of their thing, and of course, the old-fashioned Ayn Rand, and libertarian, going back to Mises and whatnot, and company, von Hayek, the idea that government can't do anything as well as corporations can do, so let's let the corporations run everything, and it's pernicious, Juan. And they've got an international audience of billionaires on this thing. I'm sorry, say what?
Basically, they've weaponized climate change. That's part of the reason why he's getting rid of FEMA. I mean, it all ties together.
Yeah.
They realize that they know what's coming, and they know that this is only the beginning of climate change, and what's coming is going to be.
Yeah, I'm not, I get what you're saying. I'm not sure I'd endorse it. I think that they're just trying to steal as much money as they can, as quickly as they can, because they all know that by the time climate change actually starts really killing people, like by the millions rather than just the thousands, that they'll all be dead. They're thinking it's 20, 30 years down the road, 40 years down the road. I think it's here, and it's going to get worse, start logarithmically. We're going to see the exponential increases. Juan, thank you for the call. We'll be back with Congressman Mark Pocan right after this.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
In addition to bringing you the Thom Hartmann Program here on Free Speech TV and Video Media Online, we also have a whole set of ways you can interact with us and tools you can use to spread the word about the importance of democracy and the threats to it in our republic. First, there's your daily homework. Sue Nethercutt puts together a daily email newsletter that has a link to every story I discuss on the air, so you can find my sources and you can share them with your friends. It's free and you can sign up at thomhartmann.com. Second, I publish my daily take every day over at the hartmannreport.com website. That's also free if you want the daily 5 days a week rant in your inbox. No ads either. Third, we have the podcasts. There's the free 1-hour version of our daily show that's advertising supported. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts normally. And then there's also the podcast of the entire 3-hour show with no advertisements, and that's available by subscription over at thomhartmann.com. So check them all out at thomhartmann.com and hartmannreport.com.
We say fight back!
Well, we continue moving along with the Free Speech TV Fund Drive. Only a couple days left. The time is shrinking. The opportunities are closing. This is your last chance, or we're getting close to it, to your last chance to become part of something bigger than you, to become part of Free Speech TV, to become part of this television network, to become a supporter of democracy. The revolutionary figure highlight for today is Ibrahim Traoré, who is the young leader of Burkina Faso. He took power at just 34 years old. Unlike many before him, his leadership wasn't about personal power, but about freeing his people from neo-colonial control. He stood firmly against, or stands firmly against, foreign exploitation, particularly Western influence over African resources, and seeks true independence for his nation and his people. He follows in the revolutionary footsteps of Thomas Sankara, a beloved leader who fought for self-sufficiency and anti-imperialism way back in the 1980s. And he isn't stopping at the liberation of Burkina Faso. He wants liberation of all of Africa, quoting Kwame Nkrumah, the first leader of an independent African state, Ghana, who said that the independence of Ghana is meaningless without the independence of all of Africa. I would add that my radio program is, I'm not sure if it's still carried this minute, but for many years it was carried by a radio station in Ghana. At Free Speech TV, we understand that the struggle for justice and sovereignty, like the one that Traore and Kwame championed, is a global cause. And we stand with movements for independence, self-sufficiency, resistance to authoritarianism, and white supremacy. Stand with us. Stand with Free Speech TV. Free Speech TV is for all the people, those who are fighting against tyranny, exploitation, and for the liberation of all marginalized communities. Here's a clip of Kwame Nkrumah.
As I said, our greatest danger stems from disunity and the inability to see that the realization of our hopes and aspirations, the realization of our objective of total African independence, and of our future progress and prosperity is inextricably bound up with the necessity to unify our policy and actions in connection with the continued struggle for independence and the greater task of economic and social reconstruction beyond it. We must therefore face the issue of African unity now. For only unity will make the artificial boundaries and regional demarcations imposed by colonialism obsolete and superfluous. African unity will thus provide an effective remedy for border disputes and internecine troubles. In a united Africa, there could be no frontier claims between Ethiopia and Somalia, or between Zanzibar and Kenya, Guinea or Liberia, or between Ghana, Togoland, and the Ivory Coast. Because we would regard ourselves as one great continental family of nations. The leaders, it must be confessed, do not see the struggle of their brother Africans as part of their own struggle. Even if they did, they would not be free to express their solidarity. These rifts are consciously created by the imperialists between Africans, where they can sit back and watch with slight satisfaction.
Yeah, there you go. So, supporting Free Speech TV, there's two different ways to do it. One is to make a monthly contribution. The other is to make a one-time contribution. You can do both at the same time, and I encourage you to. The monthly contribution can be as small or as substantial as you would like. It can be $5. It could be $500, depending on what works for you. And the one-time gifts, with a $20 one-time gift, you have your choice of the bumper sticker, Elect a Clown, Expect a Circus, or the This Is Not Normal bumper sticker. With a $120 gift, you have your choice of the book by Sonali, Talking About Abolition, or my book, The Hidden History of the American Dream, my most recent book, autographed by me, by the author. With a $1,000 gift, there's the Hidden History book collection, all 10 of the Hidden History books. It's a discount, right? 10 books for $100 each instead of one for $120. And of course, the money goes to Free Speech TV. And with a $1,000 gift, you can also come here to Portland and hang out with us during the last hour of the show, and I'll take you to lunch, with a little meet and greet here in Portland if you'd like to hop on an airplane or whatever works for you. So those are the bottom lines. Those are the ways that you can give. The specific, or those are what you can give. The way to do it is to either go to freespeech.org/donate, or just freespeech.org and click the donate button, or call 877-378-8669. 877-378-8669. And if you're going to try to do both, give a one-time gift and make a commitment, that's best to call the phone number to do that. Although I'm guessing you could probably do it with 2 visits to the website. But check it out. We need your help. We're still behind. Please call now or go to freespeech.org and make your contribution. Thank you.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Congressman Mark Pocan, representing the 2nd District of Wisconsin, current member and chair emeritus of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, co-founder and co-chair of the Labor Caucus, chair of the Congressional Equality Caucus. Pocan.house.gov, pocan.house.gov is his website, pocan.house.gov, also on Blue Sky. And Congressman, welcome back. I'm curious your thoughts on how the world has proceeded in the last 2 weeks since we last spoke.
I can't even think of all the things that have happened, Tom, because that's
wild.
The pace of what's going on. But I think what hasn't changed is the Republicans are all about trying to make sure they get a tax cut for the wealthiest. They're going to do everything they can to get that done. And that's going to be the cuts that they're proposing, $1.5 trillion. They're going to go after things like Medicaid, food assistance, education funding, subsidies for the Affordable Care Act. So that's something that could happen as early as the first full week in April. So I think this is all alarm on this one to get people ready to make sure they're contacting their members of Congress. We're concerned about Social Security. Clearly, the president during the State of the Union mentioning it as long as he did and repeating lies as often as he did, along with Elon Musk calling it a Ponzi scheme, along with the firing of employees, is of concern, and we all should be watching that very closely. And then just everything with Elon Musk. Fortunately, we're winning a lot of court battles lately. I think I was told today we've had 47 or 46 wins on court battles already, and that's good. But that's why it's about litigation right now. What we can't do congressionally, we can do legally. And in many cases, these are Trump-appointed judges ruling against Trump because what he did was a violation of the law. So lots going on, but we're getting around. Not just our district, but there's a trend to get to Republican districts and try to hold members accountable who won't listen to their constituents.
Yeah, all hail to you. All praise to Congressman Pocan. It seems to me like I don't know how many years you've been on this program every Wednesday or every other Wednesday. It's been about a decade, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So, and I remember, a decade ago, or back when we first started, you talking about going into Republican districts and doing town halls. You really pioneered this, and I'm glad to see you getting the credit for it. I saw you on CNN or MSNBC the other day, and they mentioned that. It's just a fine thing the Democrats are doing. I think it's a great strategy, and I'm just astonished that we don't have 150 or 200 Democrats doing this in red districts rather than just 6 or 8.
More and more are. So that's the good news. I think the two responsibilities at the most basic level of a member of Congress is to represent your constituents in Washington, which means you got to talk to them to make sure you're sharing their values, and then to explain Washington back home, which is often, especially these days, the tougher part. But you can't do it if you don't talk to the people in your district. And, Derek Van Orden in Wisconsin's 3rd District is a great example. I've done them adjoining his district yesterday. Last night I was in his district in Viroqua, Wisconsin. And, he's saying he won't do them because George Soros is funding all these agitators. Well, at the very beginning of it, this is local people put it together and invited me. But, they asked, anyone here funded by George Soros? And everyone's laughing. And they had over 300 people show up in a town of 4,500. They would like to be heard by their member of Congress, but he's, hiding in his basement because he's ashamed of what they're doing. Common sense. Wisconsin is very practical. If you really are doing something that good, you'd get on the rooftop and scream about it. And the fact that you're hiding from your constituents says everything. So taking the fight to them is what we need to do.
Yeah. Amen. Amen. Well said. All right, let's pick up some phone calls here. Sure. Assuming there's nothing else you wanted to preface the show with. Okay. Alexis in Santa Fe, New Mexico, listening on KTRC. You are on the air with Congressman Mark Pocan.
Hi, thank you for having me. My question revolves around voters moving to Trump. So I've seen in polling numbers displaying a huge move by Black and Hispanic voters to Trump. And, the rhetoric used by Tom earlier, mocking diplomacy, saying Trump and Putin were on a 2-hour phone sex discussion, is basically saying you guys don't take peace seriously. So why should a Hispanic woman like myself vote other than Republican? I don't see you guys saying anything about the Teslas being set on fire. You just said, Congressman, with all due respect, that we need to take to fight to them? I thought you cared about environment. And you don't even thank Elon for bringing the astronauts home. What are your plans for attracting voters like myself, Hispanic, specifically in your minority populations? It's not appealing to us.
Yeah, no, and clearly you don't care what Donald Trump does to you by, the recognition of what you're saying, that you're okay with Donald Trump. And Donald Trump's been awful to everyone that's basically not a white male in this country. I mean, largely he's running on racist policies. What I can tell you is why we didn't do well in November with some populations that you just mentioned is because the number one issue was the economy. Over 50% of the people said that was the reason they voted. And in a dozen other countries across the globe, whoever was in power got thrown out because of global inflation coming out of COVID, which, by the way, Donald Trump screwed up immensely. And that's part of why we had his problem as deep as we had in the United States. So, I get it. If people are paying too much for gas and groceries and housing, that's their number one priority. People think about themselves first and foremost. But right now, Donald Trump is screwing it up immensely, between eggs and tariffs. I mean, the tariffs alone, indiscriminately putting tariffs on everything. I'm for targeted tariffs, Tom. It can be used well, especially on when they're dumping cheap steel and things like that can affect an entire industry. But when it comes to the way Donald Trump's acting, I guarantee we're going to have more increased costs because of Donald Trump. He'll blame Joe Biden somehow. But, we need people to be honest about it. I don't think the caller, Tom, was particularly being honest, but I'm glad to share why we lost certain voters, but why we certainly should be right now having Trump lose voters, because he's not doing anything to address the economy while he's doing a lot of devastation to the country.
Sylvia in Bluntville, Tennessee, or you're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Oh, good afternoon. I think Senator Schumer did the right thing. He said that a Republican senator told one of the Democratic senators that the Republican plan was to get the Democrats to close down the government, and then the White House would have the decision as to whether it opened or not, and the White House would not open the government for at least 6 months. They could declare what was essential and what was not, and they would do away with SNAP, with Medicare, with Medicaid, Social Security. They could do what they wanted. Elon Musk could continue stealing all the information, and there would be no way to stop.
So, Sylvia, what's your question for Congressman Pocan? Or did you just want to make that point?
What does he think?
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, Sylvia, what I think is, we have bad choices and worse choices because elections have consequences. And what the problem, I think, on that bill was, and I think you could make a strong argument with what Chuck Schumer said, but I think the stronger argument is what most Democrats said, which is if you pass a CR, you don't have congressional direction on spending. And since they're not already accepting Article 1 of the Constitution, powers of Congress, especially around spending, they could go and get rid of more programs if you have a CR without congressional directive. And that would actually go against some of the legal arguments we've been making. So that was our argument. Chuck Schumer's argument, I think, was more along if people are furloughed or essentially called non-essential under a shutdown for over 30 days, it's easier to fire them. Also, a valid argument, but they're already firing people anyway. So we really have bad choices and worse choices. I'm keeping my fire on Donald Trump and Elon Musk because they're the ones who are doing the damage.
There you go. 15 minutes past the hour. Congressman Mark Pocan, Chair Emeritus of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, representing the 2nd District of Wisconsin in the U.S. House of Representatives, taking your calls for the hour. It's our Middays with Mark, regular national town hall meeting with Congressman Mark Pocan. Stay with us. We'll be back with more of your calls for Congressman Pocan in just a minute.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Defending America from the weapons of mass deception. We'll be right back with your calls for Congressman Mark Pocan. And welcome back. Susan in Caldwell, Idaho. You are on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Congressman, we're so happy you're here. Over here in the Northwest. Hello? Mr. Pocan?
Yeah, thank you, Susan. Sorry.
We're here in the Northwest. You know, our development has been, for over 100 years, linked to water project development. And we have, Bureau of Reclamation was the agency, I think, created by Teddy Roosevelt to start this. I see reports in the Associated Press and then reprinted in my 2 local papers that the regional office for the entire Pacific Northwest, Washington, Oregon, Idaho, parts of Montana, is slated to close. We have the 70-plus dams, my rivers in Idaho, and then the whole Columbia Basin, almost 200 irrigation districts. Nobody in that office is talking, where are these people who run these facilities going to go? Where would anybody go? What is happening? Everybody here in federal employment is afraid to talk. I have a few acquaintances in federal employment, and they describe situations where it's like their offices have the equivalent of a Communist Party member monitoring all their activities in their day-to-day life. What can we do, and what can you do?
Yeah, so Susan, first of all, contact your Republican members in Idaho, because I think you've got all Republican federal members of the House and Senate, and try to hold them accountable. If they're not doing public town halls, make whatever they are doing public become a town hall, right? Bring some people and make them answer your questions, because they know this isn't right. Trust me, many Republicans I talk to aren't getting updates either. They're just being quiet because they're afraid of Trump and Musk. But this is what happens when you put someone with no federal experience in charge of basically everything, is what Donald Trump has done. And they're just getting rid of leases across the country. They're firing people. They're not thinking about the actual duties of federal government because they have no experience in federal government. And that's why the Republicans who are being complacent and not standing up need to feel the heat. What you can do is support the groups that are doing litigation around some of this, and there are litigation trackers. I think if you Google Trump litigation tracker, you'll find several that are out there. But, you know, there's something like 150 plus lawsuits right now, but we've already won on like 46 or something like that. I think Jamie Raskin said this morning. So, you know, that is the best thing we can do to try to stop and slow things down, but also contact your members of Congress and make it a regular practice to do so.
Yeah, I would add that Mark Elias is doing God's work. He was the guy at the big law firm in D.C. that Trump just basically tried to destroy by forbidding them from going into federal buildings, and he's leading so many of these lawsuits. And he's got a couple of websites. I mean, just Google his name, Mark Elias. But do you know of any, we just have 15 seconds here, do you know of any of these lawsuits that Trump has lost where he has actually done what the judges told him to do?
Many of them he has, actually, but this is the real test, Tom, you bring up, and it's right. When he decides not to comply with the judge order, there's a few more court steps that have to happen. But what ultimately happens, and that's going to be the real test. Yeah,
in the deportation to El Salvador thing this morning, the judge gave him a little more time. So we'll see what happens. Congressman Mark Pocan with us for the hour, taking your calls. We'll be right back with more of your calls for Congressman Pocan at 60 seconds. Stay tuned. Help support Progressive Radio. If you're listening to us on a commercial station, call their advertisers and let them know you're listening. If you're listening to us on Pacifica, one of our many nonprofit stations, please support them when they do their fundraising drives. Thanks for supporting Progressive Talk Radio, and tag you're it. Welcome back. 20 minutes past the hour, picking up your calls for Congressman Mark Pocan. Here, Jessica in Chicago. You are on the air with Representative Pocan.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Congressman Pocan, for speaking out all the time with all the town halls and on a couple shows. You've been wonderful.
Well, thank you.
And I am worried about, I know that the judge is extending the case, but is there any hope for the innocent Venezuelans in prison in El Salvador? The families have already identified a son or a husband that is innocent and a teenager, and they committed no crimes, and that they never got due process. But if the judge wants them sent back, I'm just hoping that would actually happen. And then my second question, maybe Venezuela can step in. I'm so sad for the innocent people in that awful prison.
Yeah, I think this, Jessica, is where we're going to really need those legal cases again to be fighting back the hardest. I mean, we can't do things congressionally due to votes. Elections have consequences in many, many cases. But the lawsuits are working, and the lawsuits are what we have to try to stop things. And ultimately, if they've done something improper to someone, I assume they would have legal recourse back. And I assume, the one job creation area right now is for lawyers under the Trump administration because of all these lawsuits. But there's no question. I mean, Donald Trump is not trying to rule in any rational way. I mean, I think a lot of what he does is chaotic with some intention to give us a lot of shiny objects to look at. Just remember, the holy grail for Donald Trump and Elon Musk as the tax cuts. And that's going to happen likely the first full week of April. I think they're shooting for right now. We have to be more active than ever in reaching out and letting people know. And Tom, I'm getting record calls. I remember the first time I told you I had a record call earlier this year, 300 calls to our local office. Now we're averaging closer to 500 a day. Wow. Because people are reaching out. We've never had anything like this between both offices, about 500 calls. And because of that, I know that's happening in other people's districts. So people are very engaged. I think, the first real test might be this Supreme Court race we have in Wisconsin on April 1st. Mm-hmm. Elon Musk has put $12 million on behalf of the conservative candidate. And if we can beat Elon Musk on April 1st in Wisconsin because people are upset and they get out to vote and we have more voters than usual, I think that sends a big national message, and we're really working to do that here in my home state.
There you go. Jim in Henderson, Kentucky, you're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Hartman. Congressman, I believe you've likely addressed what I was going to ask, and that was just simply, I know that elections have consequences, but what specifically, if anything, can Congress do to help reassure the federal judiciary that, hey, they're going to be able to do their jobs and do so without concern? Because what I envision in the coming months and maybe weeks and possibly years is that there will be, singling out of individual judges and then, of course, making them out into the public, square out to be biased or whatever the case may be. So what can you guys do possibly to ensure that doesn't become, the case, especially with the legislative branch pretty much advocating all the responsibilities to the executive branch? The judiciary is literally like the old sheriff out in the Old West. They are by themselves. Yeah, and Trump might intimidate these judges enough that they resign, and then he gets to replace them with his toadies. Yeah. Thank you, Jim.
Yeah, well, I think, the nutty MAGA movement in Congress is going after judges right now. But I think if I read it right, it takes a 2/3 vote to get rid of some of these federal judges. So it's not going to be possible, right? So they're kind of in their MAGA Kool-Aid drinking fervor. But that's where we're winning right now is in courts. And even judges that are appointed by Donald Trump, even the Supreme Court, we had a couple of the conservative majority vote with us on some decisions. Because at the end of the day, the law is the law. And if people are willing to have any kind of spinal fortitude, we can win on these things. So that is still our best avenue. They're going to need a minimum of 3 votes in Congress, possibly, unfortunately, due to the deaths of 2 members from Houston and from Arizona. We are down to more people, so they might have a little more wiggle room once those 2 members are in, or 3 members are in April, assuming we don't win any of the special elections. So it's still going to be very tight by a handful, one way or the other. But we just don't have the majority right now, and that means we have to get it 3 to 5 Republicans to do the right thing nationally. And I think by doing town halls in their district, by forcing Republicans to have to speak to people, people are not with them right now. That is our single best way to try to get those votes legislatively. Short of that, it's the judicial process that we have.
Congressman, I just have 45 seconds here, not enough time to get another caller on before we hit a hard break. The last caller asked if there's anything Congress can do to backstop the judges, and I didn't hear a specific answer to that. I'm guessing the answer is there's nothing really, but thoughts?
Yeah. I don't believe so. I mean, because again, we don't have the majority, right? I mean, there's a little process we would have would be a discharge petition, but you'd have to have Republicans sign it. So the only one where there is an active discharge petition right now in the House about if a member of Congress has a child gives birth, that they can vote proxy. And I think there's Republican that have joined Democrats. Every Democrat, I believe, signed it, and we might be able to get a vote on that. But discharge petitions are few and far between, and anything policy, I doubt Donald Trump will allow them to do that.
Mike Johnson is opposing that?
Yes, he is, but we have enough Republicans joining all Democrats.
That's because you've got one Democrat who has a 4-month-old baby, right?
Exactly. She just had a baby, and she's come twice now to vote
with her baby. I saw the clip. Amazing. Congressman Mark Pocan with us. It's Middays with Mark, our hour-long town hall meeting, the second hour of our program today, live with Congressman Mark Pocan. We'll be back with more of your calls for him on the other side of this break.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
Pocan.house.gov is both his website and also his handle over on Blue Sky. Check it out. Well, we continue moving along with the Free Speech TV Fund Drive. Only a couple days left. The time is shrinking. The opportunities are closing. This is your last chance, or we're getting close to it, to your last chance to become part of something bigger than you, to become part of Free Speech TV, to become part of this television network, to become a supporter of democracy. The revolutionary figure highlight for today is Ibrahim Traoré, who is the young leader of Burkina Faso. He took power at just 34 years old. Unlike many before him, his leadership wasn't about personal power, but about freeing his people from neo-colonial control. He stood firmly against, or stands firmly against, foreign exploitation, particularly Western influence over African resources, and seeks true independence for his nation and his people. He follows in the revolutionary footsteps of Thomas Sankara, a beloved leader who fought for self-sufficiency and anti-imperialism way back in the 1980s. And he isn't stopping at the liberation of Burkina Faso. He wants liberation of all of Africa, quoting Kwame Nkrumah, the first leader of an independent African state, Ghana, who said that the independence of Ghana is meaningless without the independence of all of Africa. I would add that my radio program is, I'm not sure if it's still carried this minute, but for many years it was carried by a radio station in Ghana. At Free Speech TV, we understand that the struggle for justice and sovereignty, like the one that Traoré and Kwame championed, is a global cause. And we stand with movements for independence, self-sufficiency, resistance to authoritarianism, and white supremacy. Stand with us. Stand with Free Speech TV. Free Speech TV is for all the people, those who are fighting against tyranny, exploitation, and for the liberation of all marginalized communities. Here's a clip of Kwame Nkrumah.
As I said, our greatest danger stems from disunity and the inability to see that the realization of our hopes and aspirations, the realization of our objective of total African independence, and of our future progress and prosperity is inextricably bound up with the necessity to unify our policy and actions in connection with the continued struggle for independence and the greater task of economic and social reconstruction beyond it. We must therefore face the issue of African unity now, for only unity will make the artificial boundaries and regional demarcations imposed by colonialism obsolete and superfluous. African unity will thus provide an effective remedy for border disputes and internecine troubles. in a united Africa, there could be no frontier claims between Ethiopia and Somalia, or between Zanzibar and Kenya, Guinea or Liberia, or between Ghana, Togoland, and the Ivory Coast. Because we would regard ourselves as one great continental family of nations. The leaders, it must be confessed, do not see the struggle of their brother Africans as part of their own struggle. Even if they did, they would not be free to express their solidarity. These rifts are consciously created by the imperialists between Africans, where they can sit back and watch with sly satisfaction.
Yeah, there you go. So, supporting Free Speech TV, there's two different ways to do it. One is to make a monthly contribution. The other is to make a one-time contribution. You can do both at the same time, and I encourage you to. The monthly contribution can be as small or as substantial as you would like. It can be $5. It could be $500, depending on what works for you. And the one-time gifts, with a $20 one-time gift, you have your choice of the bumper sticker, Elect a Clown, Expect a Circus, or the This Is Not Normal bumper sticker. With a $120 gift, you have your choice of the book by Sonali, Talking About Abolition, or my book, The Hidden History of the American Dream, my most recent book, autographed by me, by the author. With a $1,000 gift, there's the Hidden History book collection, all 10 of the Hidden History books. It's a discount, right? 10 books for $100 each instead of one for $120. And of course, the money goes to Free Speech TV. And with a $1,000 gift, you can also come here to Portland and hang out with us during the last hour of the show, and I'll take you to lunch, with a little meet and greet here in Portland if you'd like to hop on an airplane or whatever works for you. So those are the bottom lines. Those are the ways that you can give. The specific, or those are what you can give. The way to do it is to either go to freespeech.org/donate, or just freespeech.org and click the donate button, or call 877-378-8669. 877-378-8669. And if you're going to try to do both, give a one-time gift and make a commitment, that's best to call the phone number to do that. Although I'm guessing you could probably do it with 2 visits to the website. But check it out. We need your help. We're still behind. Please call now or go to freespeech.org and make your contribution. Thank you. Our daily song is now available on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, YouTube Music, Pandora, Tidal, Deezer, iHeartRadio, and a whole bunch of other platforms. Just look for songs by Louise and Thom Hartmann. Check it out. So what do we call the really, really mind-bogglingly rich? At the founding of the Republic, they were referred to as speculators or moneyed interest or aristocrats. In the years leading up to the Civil War, we called them the cotton lords and the plantation aristocracy. In the late 19th century, they were the robber barons. In the 1930s, FDR called them the economic royalists. But since the Reagan Revolution, we've just called them billionaires. And now, some of them want to call themselves tech bros. Like, that's kind of a good thing, like tech is positive. Like Mark Zuckerberg saying we need more masculine energy in American business culture. So we need a new phrase. I would like to suggest the morbidly rich. Morbidly suggests unhealthy. And the vast riches that some of these people have is unhealthy to our democracy, particularly since 5 Republicans on the Supreme Court said that morbidly rich people can buy politicians. And it's unhealthy for them, too. So morbidly rich. There's an op-ed over at HartmannReport.com all about it. Check it out.
Sirens wail, the market's crashing, families cry while fortunes vanish. Jobs are gone, the banks foreclose, but the morbidly rich just strike a pose. They pour the scotch, they clink their glass, they buy up
stocks while you collapse. A crisis means it's time to play another fire sale today.
35 minutes past the hour. Congressman Mark Pocan with us for the hour, taking your calls. Ray in Casa Mesa, California. You are Costa Mesa. You are on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. How are you today? My comment is I've been hearing, receiving emails and text messages regarding flipping 3 seats in the House due to special elections. Is this true? And if so, why aren't we doing anything about it? And additionally, we should be calling the January 6th rioters traitors, not rioters. And Elon Musk, when we refer to him as the most richest man in the world, we should also footnote that the United States has given him a large majority of his money. And
Congressman?
Yeah, no, I agree. In fact, I liked during the break the discussion of morbidly rich as the term, Tom. I like using that. I think that's a smart way of describing it. There are 3 special elections. They are Republican-leaning districts, but that doesn't mean they're necessarily Republican districts. In fact, I think Josh Weil down in Florida is running in the Matt Gaetz seat, and the guy he's running against fine is about as MAGA as you can get. In fact, he might be off the edge of MAGA into the next realm. So there are some elections out there, and I know he's raised about $10 million in his congressional race in the special election. So there are some elections to watch. I just think the biggest message we're going to have nationally is the Supreme Court election in Wisconsin, where Elon Musk himself has put in $12 million. Susan Crawford is the person who's running as a judge, a fair jurist, running for the court. Brian Schimmel, the Republican former attorney general who we unelected, we fired, is the candidate by the conservatives that Musk has put his money behind. So, if people in Wisconsin really want to send a national message, they can do so. And I think from my town halls, Tom, which I've done quite a bit of lately, people are ready to send that message, and I'm hoping that'll be something that Republicans in Congress will look at and maybe realize that next fall could be consequential if they don't do something different.
Ed in Chicago, you're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Congressman, listen, Congressman, I have a ton of respect for you, but talking about tax cuts as the most important thing right now is just infuriating. Our democracy is under attack by a Russian asset. Everything Trump is doing is for the benefit of Putin. Everything. And as important as tax legislation is, we lose our democracy. Losing our democracy dwarfs that. So my question is, in the Democratic Party, is there any talk at all about stepping up political theater to the nth degree? I'm talking about having something happening on a daily basis to try to break through to the corporate news, and including PBS on that, as to the danger that our democracy is in right now. I could run down the litany of things that Trump has done that benefit Putin, but I won't. You should be well aware of them. And again, I don't get it. It's as if in World War II we just said, well, Pearl Harbor's, that happened, but we have to worry about taking care of these oil contracts. We are under attack right now. Daily, we're losing stuff. Are you guys talking about that at all?
Yeah, it's being talked about all the time. I see it. However, Ed, we also talked about it in November, and we saw how that worked, right? We absolutely can talk about what Donald Trump is doing, but everything Donald Trump has done since he's been in office is to benefit Donald Trump and his family and people who can belong to Mar-a-Lago. And Elon Musk is the newest BFF who's put $277 million behind him and Republicans, and now is talking about putting another $100 million. But this is all about tax breaks. Make no mistake. And the last time Trump was president, his lowest point in his presidency is when he pushed his tax cuts. He was down to 35% approval. And it's going to happen in a couple weeks. So we can focus on hopefully multiple things, and we can talk about the border, and we can talk about other issues. But their holy grail is this tax cut. And in order to get it, they're talking about cutting Medicaid, food assistance, 45% of the funding to education, and taking away subsidies for the Health Care Act. And I am an economic progressive populist first and foremost. And if people can't live and don't have health insurance, then that's our greatest risk. I'm an FDR progressive, and I am going to keep that focus, but I guarantee just the opposite is true of Donald Trump. So we have to keep focused on the tax cuts and what they're trying to do to make sure Elon Musk can get even richer. And if we don't, then we do exactly, in some ways, what he wants. He puts out a lot of shiny objects, and he wants us to go for them all so we don't focus. I'm going to focus on what I know is his top priority, and that's making Donald Trump and Elon Musk richer, and that's through tax cuts.
Joe in Chicago, you're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Yes, hi. Thank you both for the good work that you do. I just have a big concern regarding the CR that just got passed by a minority of Democratic senators, and that I don't understand the logic here, that if you are a legislator, obviously you represent everybody, but if you're elected as a Democrat, the people that elected you are the Democratic voters, the Democratic volunteers, and the Democratic donors. When you have an issue like this, and the vast majority of your Democratic base asks you to vote one way, and then you vote the other way, I don't understand how you'd expect to be any, a fundamental return from that. And that suggests that your base doesn't understand the consequences of a government shutdown after 15 years of going through this every 3 months is condescending.
Yeah, no, I've heard Chuck Schumer's arguments, and I know people agree. I mean, every Democrat but one in the House and every Democrat in the Senate but 10 on the closure vote, which was a significant vote, disagreed with Chuck Schumer, right? But it's a call that's probably 75-25, right? I mean, we had bad and worse choices. The bad choice that I supported was making sure we didn't have a CR moving forward without any congressional directive on spending, because we think Elon Musk will use it in legal battles to keep cutting, and they'll be able to say there was no congressional directive. And that it is Article 1. The Constitution says it's Congress's ability to do this, especially the power of the purse. Chuck Schumer was saying he thinks if they have a shutdown that they will leave it so that after 30 days it's easier to fire an employee. And we know they've been going around firing people right and left in agencies. I just think the funding issue was stronger than the issue he was concerned about. And at the end of the day, it might have been more style than substance. People wanted Democrats to fight, and Chuck Schumer didn't show the fight. And, I think it really was stylistic more than substance, because we had bad and worse choices because elections have consequences, but fighting for the people were what people really wanted, and I think that's what Chuck Schumer misread.
Jim in Memphis, Tennessee, you're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Hello, gentlemen. Thanks for taking my call. I am very worried about student loan debt. I was in the SAVE repayment plan, which Republicans just killed. I had $143,000, which it's a long story, but it goes back to 1983, my student loan debt.
Whoa.
And so I was in it's so confusing because there have been several different income-based repayment plans and income-dependent repayment plans, and then the SAVE plan. I was in the IDR before it. Well, anyway, I went on the website before Elon Musk took over the Department of Education, and according to the SAVE plan that I was on, thanks to Biden, I was one payment away from having the rest of my loans forgiven. What all these, I think Tom, I'm not sure Tom knows this, but in these income-based repayment plans, which base the payments on your income, your remaining debt is supposed to be forgiven after 20 or 25 years, depending on your... Well, I started in like 1990s paying on mine, and I had I was not able to finish
Jim,
my
we're going to run out of
PhD.
time here in just a second. I need you to get right to your question, please.
Well, my question is, what is going to happen to those of us on the SAVE plan that were near getting our student loans wiped out now that it's dead and the Department of Education may be dismantled? What's going to happen to us, and is there any way to get our loans forgiven with Republicans wanting to kill it up completely?
Thank you.
Now, Jim, I could be wrong on this, but I believe they still need legislation to officially kill it. This is, I think, one of the things, again, that may be being challenged right now. And they were going to put it up, and they keep telling us they're going to put it up for a vote. And I don't think they have the votes yet to do that, so they haven't. And I just got an update today that, again, it's on the agenda for the next 3 weeks. It could happen, but that happened, I think, the last two periods as well. So let's find out first if there is some a lawsuit right now on what the Trump administration has done. But the legislation, I know they're still trying to do, and right now they can't put it on the floor. So that's a good thing. But contact your member of Congress and Senate, please, about this.
There you go. Congressman Mark Pocan, the Chair Emeritus of the Congressional Progressive Caucus representing Wisconsin's 2nd District, is with us for the hour. It's our Middays with Mark, second hour here on the Thom Hartmann Program. We'll be right back with more of your calls for Representative Pocan in just a moment. Stay with us.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Pocan.house.gov, pocan.house.gov is his website. It's also his Blue Sky handle. Excuse me. We'll be right back. And welcome back. Grant in Everett, Washington. You're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Good day. My question concerns your town hall meetings, and I'm asking who on the other side of the aisle have you asked to come to your town hall meetings or go to their town hall meetings, and not as adversaries, but as allies in the representing of our government, to me, means you reach across the aisle.
Yeah, so first of all, the Republican leadership has told Republican members not to have town halls. So the few that you've seen on TV have been people who've defied their leadership to have a town hall, and I give them credit because at least they're trying to listen, which is their job to do. I've offered every Wisconsin Republican member, that if they want to have a town hall, I'll come to their district and have a debate on the issues. And if they were really proud of those issues, common sense would say they would want to do that because they'd want to get on the rooftop and scream about all the great things they're doing for their constituents. But no one has invited me, and no one has done a public town hall since a few they had that didn't go so well this year early on. So that's why, with Derek Van Orden in particular, I don't think he's ever done an open in-person public town hall. And so I've had them at the border of my district, close to where he has constituents that they can come. This one last night was in his district, so it was all his constituents who are right there in Viroqua, Wisconsin. And I'm going to do more in his district because at the end of the day, if he ultimately does a in-person open public town hall the way that I and most members have traditionally operated, at least he's listening. But if he's not going to listen to his constituents, I don't feel it's fair for those folks to never be heard. So I'm looking at districts in Iowa and Pennsylvania and some other places I may be doing this as well. I have a lot of time in D.C. I don't have that much time to be away from my own district, but I think it's important. And the good news is more and more members. Ro Khanna is doing some this Sunday. Robert Garcia is doing some. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is. Maxwell Frost is. Bonnie Watson-Coleman is, and other members are talking about doing it in the next open period that we have when we're home again. So I'm hoping that this becomes an issue all Democrats ultimately want to do, because I think it's the best way to prove that they're just not telling the truth, and it's a way to hold people accountable.
There you go. Michael in Gainesville, Florida. We have just a minute to the break, Michael. You got a quick question for Congressman Pocan?
Sure. Real quickly, it has to do with the mysterious issue with the senators on call the other day, and it has to do with, I saw him on The View conflate pro-Palestinian and Zionism as being anti-Semitic. White Christian nationalism and Zionism are both anti-Semitic and both racist. So was I witnessing him being influenced by Zionists when Senator Schumer made his inexplicable change? Was that Zionism here and abroad influencing his call?
Yeah, I didn't see the interview on The View with him, so I really can't speak to it. I'm sorry, Michael.
Yeah. Do you want to speak at all to what's going on in Israel right now?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think it's time for Netanyahu. Well, it's past time for Netanyahu to go. As long as he's there, he's hurting Israel.
Yeah, I agree. He's hurting Israel. He's hurting America too.
Yes.
10 minutes before the hour, we'll be back with more of Congressman Mark Pocan taking your calls for the hour in just a minute. Stay with us. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us. You know, Richard Nixon and Spiro Agnew both took cash bribes while they were in the White House. Since then, you know, the Supreme Court, or at least 5 Republicans on the Supreme Court, made it a lot easier for politicians to take bribes with their Citizens United decision, which basically legalized political bribery as long as it's done through campaigns or PACs or super PACs. But for some people, there's just never enough money, right? Donald Trump has been running small-time hustles to make money for decades, selling sneakers, Bibles, steaks, vodka, water. But now he's hit the big time. He's got these fungible tokens, right? These fungible crypto assets, which are basically just digital pictures of Donald Trump that say fight, fight, fight. And he has turned them into an $8 billion machine. His wife is in on this too, with his Trump coin. It's a new way that foreign powers and billionaires in the United States can just shovel money into Donald Trump's pocket. There's a whole article about it over at HartmannReport.com titled Presidential Payola, the Evolution of Political Bribery. Check it out.
Roll up, join the fight. We're taking on the billionaires. We're bringing back your rights. The revolution's here. We're knocking on the door. Welcome to Bernie's anti-oligarchy tour.
Back 52 minutes past the hour. Mark Pocan is the guy who arguably started the Bernie's anti-oligarchy tour. Nikki in Chicago, you're on the air with Congressman Pocan.
Hi, guys. I had a question. I have started to try to save my mental health by trying to not read so much about what Trump is doing and instead read about what the counter group is doing, and it seems to help a little bit. I remember reading about a group of state's attorneys that had gotten together like a year ago and were starting to already plan for what Trump was going to do, but I can't find anything current. And I was wondering if you knew anything about this group of, I believe it was Democratic state's attorneys who are gearing up and have been for a year to fight Trump.
I don't know where you'd look for something, but I know Keith Ellison has been instrumental in helping organize some of the Democratic attorney generals to do just this. And you're exactly right. We've met with some of them in Washington, D.C. They're doing the fight that we need across the country because litigation and communication are our best tools right now in fighting back. I did just 3 hours ago on my official Twitter put a link to the litigation response task force that the House Democrats have, and you might want to follow that because Jamie Raskin, who is a constitutional law professor and one of the smartest people I know, is really tracking a lot of the lawsuits right now, and he's the one who told us just this morning that I think we've won 46 already of the 100 and whatever cases that are out there, which was a really big number, and we're winning it with Republican-appointed judges as well. So follow and support those attorney generals who are doing the work, but also check out that Democratic task force because we're sharing a lot of that information.
Jeff in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We just have a minute and a half left. Jeff, you got a quick one here?
Yeah, just a real point I want to make.
On the right, Trump toward I-279.
I assume is not really president of the United States. He's a thug. He's a bully. He's the bully on the schoolyard. There's nothing you could do to him. He's going to do it. So my question to Representative Pocan is, why doesn't the United States military, generals and people who have a lot of sway still, maybe they're in the government, maybe they're out of it or retired, I think they should put together a thing to extract Trump out of Mar-a-Lago, put him in chains, make him do a perp walk, and send him to Guantanamo because he's the biggest.
We got it, Jeff. Congressman, your thoughts?
Yeah, I hear you, Jeff. So I don't know where to go with this exactly, other than to say I think in general they follow the rule of law, even if Donald Trump doesn't. But I do agree with what you're saying. I think Elon Musk may be more powerful than the president right now. He's been given this authority by the president to do some of the dirty work so that Republicans don't have to actually vote and do some of these things. But the fact that he's so corrupt that he's getting federal contracts and getting more and more, $8 million a day, Tom, is what he makes in federal contracts. And I think the average person on Social Security makes, what, $68 a day or something like that. This is corruption. And I do think that Elon Musk is more powerful than Donald Trump in many ways.
I assume, though, that you're not suggesting that Donald Trump should be put in chains and shipped off to Guantanamo.
No, that's why I said I think, the rule of law is going to be followed by the military right now. But look, TBD in some ways. If he continues to defy court orders and ultimately he refuses to follow the courts, we will have to deal with that. And that's to be determined.
Last 15 seconds here. Thoughts on the coming weeks?
I'll tell you, this week still, almost every member of the House is at home. So if they're anywhere public, make that public appearance at Town Hall if your member's not doing a Town Hall, right? That's the first thing to remember. Second, in the next floor period, likely they will try to vote on this reconciliation bill that's going to pass the tax cuts. So be really vigilant.
You got it. Congressman Mark Pocan, thank you so much, Congressman.
Yeah, thank you, Tom, as always.
Always great having you with us. We'll be back with more of the news of the day and your calls on the other side of the break. We're hitting the top of the hour. It's 57 minutes past the hour. It's the Thom Hartmann Program, the place where despair is not an option. Stay with
us. You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
In addition to bringing you the Thom Hartmann Program here on Free Speech TV and Video Media Online, we also have a whole set of ways you can interact with us and tools you can use to spread the word about the importance of democracy and the threats to it in our republic. First, there's your daily homework. Sue Nethercutt puts together a daily email newsletter that has a link to every story I discuss on the air, so you can find my sources and you can share them with your friends. It's free and you can sign up at thomhartmann.com. Second, I publish my daily take every day over at the HartmannReport.com website. That's also free if you want the daily 5 days a week rant in your inbox. No ads either. Third, we have the podcasts. There's the free 1-hour version of our daily show that's advertising supported. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts normally. And then there's also the podcast of the entire 3-hour show with no advertisements, and that's available by subscription over at thomhartmann.com. So check them all out at thomhartmann.com and hartmannreport.com.
We say fight back!
Well, we continue moving along with the Free Speech TV Fund Drive. Only a couple days left. The time is shrinking. The opportunities are closing. This is your last chance, or we're getting close to it, to your last chance to become part of something bigger than you, to become part of Free Speech TV, to become part of this television network, to become a supporter of democracy. The revolutionary figure highlight for today is Ibrahim Traoré, who is the young leader of Burkina Faso. He took power at just 34 years old. Unlike many before him, his leadership wasn't about personal power, but about freeing his people from neo-colonial control. He stood firmly against, or stands firmly against, foreign exploitation, particularly Western influence over African resources, and seeks true independence for his nation and his people. He follows in the revolutionary footsteps of Thomas Sankara, a beloved leader who fought for self-sufficiency and anti-imperialism way back in the 1980s. And he isn't stopping at the liberation of Burkina Faso. He wants liberation of all of Africa, quoting Kwame Nkrumah, the first leader of an independent African state, Ghana, who said that the independence of Ghana is meaningless without the independence of all of Africa. I would add that my radio program is, I'm not sure if it's still carried this minute, but for many years it was carried by a radio station in Ghana. At Free Speech TV, we understand that the struggle for justice and sovereignty, like the one that Traore and Kwame championed, is a global cause. And we stand with movements for independence, self-sufficiency, resistance to authoritarianism, and white supremacy. Stand with us. Stand with Free Speech TV. Free Speech TV is for all the people, those who are fighting against tyranny, exploitation, and for the liberation of all marginalized communities. Here's a clip of Kwame Nkrumah.
As I said, our greatest danger stems from disunity and the inability to see that the realization of our hopes and aspirations, the realization of our objective of total African independence, and of our future progress and prosperity is inextricably bound up with the necessity to unify our policy and actions in connection with the continued struggle for independence and the greater task of economic and social reconstruction beyond it. We must therefore face the issue of African unity now. For only unity will make the artificial boundaries and regional demarcations imposed by colonialism obsolete and superfluous. African unity will thus provide an effective remedy for border disputes and internecine troubles. In a united Africa, there could be no frontier claims between Ethiopia and Somalia, or between Zanzibar and Kenya, Guinea or Liberia, or between Ghana, Togoland, and the Ivory Coast. Because we would regard ourselves as one great continental family of nations. So the leaders, it must be confessed, do not see the struggle of their brother Africans as part of their own struggle. Even if they did, they would not be free to express their solidarity. These rifts are consciously created by the imperialists between Africans, where they can sit back and watch with slight satisfaction.
Yeah, there you go. So, supporting Free Speech TV, there's two different ways to do it. One is to make a monthly contribution. The other is to make a one-time contribution. You can do both at the same time, and I encourage you to. The monthly contribution can be as small or as substantial as you would like. It can be $5. It could be $500, depending on what works for you. And the one-time gifts, with a $20 one-time gift, you have your choice of the bumper sticker, Elect a Clown, Expect a Circus, or the This Is Not Normal bumper sticker. With a $120 gift, you have your choice of the book by Sonali, Talking About Abolition, or my book, The Hidden Dream, my most recent book, autographed by me, by the author. With a $1,000 gift, there's the Hidden History book collection, all 10 of the Hidden History books. It's a discount, right? 10 books for $100 each instead of one for $120. And of course, the money goes to Free Speech TV. And with a $1,000 gift, you can also come here to Portland and hang out with us during the last hour of the show, and I'll take you to lunch, with a little meet and greet here in Portland if you'd like to hop on an airplane or whatever works for you. So those are the bottom lines. Those are the ways that you can give. The specific, or those are what you can give. The way to do it is to either go to freespeech.org/donate, or just freespeech.org and click the donate button, or call 877-378-8669. 877-378-8669. And if you're going to try to do both, give a one-time gift and make a commitment, that's best to call the phone number to do that. Although I'm guessing you could probably do it with 2 visits to the website. But check it out. We need your help. We're still behind. Please call now or go to freespeech.org and make your contribution. Thank you.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
So Donald Trump spent 2 hours with Elon Musk yesterday. I mean, who knows? Some are arguing he was having phone sex. But weren't we warned about this? Weren't we warned that Donald Trump is a Russian asset? That Elon Musk, or excuse me, that Vladimir Putin, is a tyrant and an autocrat and has been working for years and years and years to destroy the United States. I mean, he's a former KGB officer for the Soviet Union. One of the people who's really been on top of this is Heidi Siegmund Cuda. Heidi is the author and an Emmy Award-winning investigative reporter. She's the co-host of the Radicalized Truth series, Survives podcast. You can subscribe to her Substack newsletter at Betty Dangerous, BETTE dangerous.com. And on Blue Sky, it's Heidi Cuda, HEIDICUDA. .bluesky.social. Heidi, welcome back to the program. Tell us about, you wrote this brilliant piece a couple days ago. I immediately sent it over to Sean and said, please get her on. The Bombshell reports on September rain, the Bombshell reports on Russian interference that should have saved America. Tell us about this.
Oh, thank you so much, Tom. It's always so nice to be back. I was thinking that people's eyes glaze over when we talk about this stuff. So I thought one of the easy things we could do is send your viewers, after this program is over, to Twitter X. Go to Watch Tenet Now, TENET Now, and you'll see that there's this like time warp. It's frozen on September 4th. And September 4th was the day of these bombshell indictments, this bombshell FBI affidavit. And what it revealed was this quote unquote conservative media outlet, Tenet Media, was actually being paid millions of dollars by the Russians to Russians working for RT, which has been revealed to be Russian state media, basically Putin's media machine propaganda outlet, which was also this RT. These employees were also linked, according to our intelligence services, directly to Russian military intelligence. They had a $10 million budget to pay YouTube influencers through this cutout called Tenet Media. And all they did all day long, and I invite people to look at this timeline, frozen on September 4th when the indictment came out, all they did all day was pro-Russian, anti-Ukraine, anti-liberal democracy, anti-trans, anti-everything that is decent or was decent about America. And that's all they do. But they mask it as conservative media. They do a very good job of sort of papering over what they do. But if you pull back and you zoom out, all you'll see all day is Russian propaganda. And why does it matter? Because the richest man in the world was retweeting the influencers who took money from the Russians, interacting with the Tenet Media account itself. And so what does that make Elon Musk, who of course, bought Twitter? It makes him the biggest, Russian bot in history. And so that to me was like an easy place to start. Just go and look at the work that this media outlet did. And of course, it was based in Tennessee. Some of the influencers you may have heard of, Tim Pool, Benny Johnson, they denied that they knew where the money was coming from, but they were getting paid $100,000 an episode. And so, as you know, Tom, as a podcaster, as a blogger, that's a pretty good chunk of change.
Yeah, per episode. Yeah, for sure. Was that last year? You said September 4th?
So that was November 4th of 2024. And why it's so interesting and why I decided to put out a compilation of all the reports I wrote at that time is because it just got papered over. The shotgun propaganda coming out of Trump and all the, all the MAGA gang papered over the real work that was being done by our intelligence agencies. And it was shortly after that kind of very bizarre, quote unquote, assassination attempt. So everybody was, looking over there and not looking at the incredible work that our Justice Department had done, our FBI had done. And I'm going to talk about the FBI work because it's really important. Our Treasury Department was involved. They ended up sanctioning 10 people involved in the RT promoting of this media company. And also our State Department issued the most incredible words that I needed as I was doing this work, and that is that foreign influence activities are not journalism. And these were foreign influence activities. And everybody from J.D. Vance to Elon Musk to, Tucker Carlson, they're all screaming, oh, freedom of speech, censorship. Well, our own State Department said these were foreign influence activities. This is not. I mentioned Tucker Carlson because the operation that I'm going to talk about next, which was the doppelganger seizure of doppelganger domains, and I'll explain what that means in a moment. They identified 2,800 influencers that these Russian, basically the people heading these operations were basically watching thousands of influencers throughout the world with the assumption that people were paid. And among them, we learned from Justin Trudeau was Tucker Carlson. So we had all this information, and I thought finally we were going to do something with it because the war that we've been engaged in, we've been a target nation of information warfare, and I thought maybe we're now going to have the ammunition to at least let people know how much their minds are being manipulated. And I'll talk about the doppelganger operation if you'd like me to.
Sure. Yeah, I've been doing this show for 21 years, and it seems that prior to the election of Donald Trump in 2016, that the conservative/Republican politicians and the conservative media had been fairly anti-Russia, anti-Soviet Union, anti-communist. And it all changed in 2016, 2017. That seemed to be, late 2016 through the summer of 2017. That's when it seems like it all changed. And I know that there was a big change, with many of the other media operations out there, including RT and others, right around that time. Is it that Trump brought Russia in, or is that Russia started having a bigger influence, or do you want to just segue to your next piece because that's going to speak to that?
That's really great. I learned something recently. I'd have to look at the year. I want to say around 2012. Pat Buchanan wrote something called Putin's Russia's paleo-conservative moment. And all of a sudden, there was this shift right around a decade ago where there was a number of conservative voices suddenly leaning in toward Russia. And I'll tell you why. They were leaning in over, traditional family values, conservatism. This is kind of what the mask was, but what it really was a comfort level with white supremacy and a comfort level against gender fluidity. And suddenly they found an ally in Putin. And I think if we zoom out, what we'll really find is a fossil fuel ally. And then they found the ideology and the narrative with traditional family values to tie it together. Yeah. So right around a decade ago, that was going on in conservative circles. And absolutely what we learned in 2016 was, of course, there was another operation like the one I'm about to describe, the Internet Research Agency operation, where they had teams of bloggers in Russia, St. Petersburg, working 24/7 in advance of the election. Hillary bad, Trump great, Bernie's all right. So we have everything to divide us up.
Right. We have about 3 minutes here until we hit a hard break. So go for it.
Perfect. So essentially what happened is all of a sudden we're seeing all these people in Trump's orbit retweeting this operation, retweeting these accounts that were pretending, some of them to be, American conservatives, but anybody paying, if I could figure out this was coming from Russia, and our intelligence agencies and our own, Senate report and GOP-led Senate report was telling us these were Russian operations, then you would think people like Mike Flynn and Don Jr., who were interacting with these accounts, would know. And so there was, multiple operations at that time, tying people like Roger Stone and Peter Thiel operations, MAGA 3X, all that stuff. I've written exhaustively about it, and I can give your viewers links if they want to learn more. So that was one piece of it. So what they do is they keep on duplicating these operations. So the same day on September 4th, where we learned that a quote unquote American media company was actually taking $10 million from RT. We also learned that our U.S. Agencies basically seized 32 domains. They use words like doppelganger, and all it means is that it looks like The Guardian, it looks like Washington Post, but these were operations from Russia to do the same thing I just described with Tenet, where basically they are putting out anti-Ukraine, pro-Russian, anti-Biden content. But what happened on that day, on September 4th, 2024, is a 277-page affidavit dropped where we learn what the FBI learned. And in granular detail, we see all the internal memos from the Russians doing this operation. And the sad thing, Tom, is they knew us better than we knew ourselves. Yeah. They knew Biden was leading a good economy. And in their own words, they said he's feeding the rednecks. For them, that was a problem. So in their own internal documents, they start talking about maybe we should create a proxy war, and they throw out some ideas. And so it's very distressing to read how clear-eyed the Russians were about our vulnerabilities, and they didn't just attack the U.S.
Yeah, we have just 1 minute left. So the federal government, the U.S. government, figured this out and put a stop to it. Now that Trump's back in office, where are we at?
Well, I'll tell you where we at. I tried to get some information for one of my Betty members from an old report of mine where I tallied up the Russian interference by the numbers, and the links don't work. Try going to the State Department, hitting a link from October, and the page says, we're sorry for the inconvenience. This information no longer exists. So that's how we're doing. That's
so
where
Trump
this is
and Putin
headed.
have shut down the U.S. government's investigation into the Putin operation. Is that what you're saying?
Well, yeah, they've removed sanctions, and yeah, nothing's going to happen. And interestingly, Tom, they only indicted Russians. They didn't indict the Americans to date that were actually working on these operations. But essentially, we know that you were talking earlier, and all I could think is that we learned on February 28th that the KGB won the Cold War when America surrendered to Russia in full view of the world when Zelensky was in the White House. So, nothing's going to happen. These will be shut down. I'm certain of that.
Yeah, and this kabuki theater that we're seeing right now around Trump talking to Putin and Zelensky. Heidi Siegmund Cuda, Betty Dangerous, BETTE, dangerous.com. Get over there. Check it out. It's a free newsletter. You're going to love it. It is extraordinary. Heidi, thanks so much for dropping by.
Thank you, Tom.
Always great talking with you. We'll be back.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
I'll be back with more of the news of the day and your calls on the other side of this. Stick around. Stay with us. And welcome back. Roger in Seattle. Hey, Roger. Thanks for listening to KBCS. What's up?
Just a second. Let me get my non-static-y microphone here. Okay. Do you hear me?
I do.
Okay. A couple weeks ago, I answered the question that the congressman couldn't answer for you. I suggested that, at least at the district level, we private citizens, non-lawyer types, but it'd be better if we had a lawyer help us, could file friend of the court briefs. And certainly if we want to help the appeal and or Supreme Court, I highly recommend getting a constitutional lawyer to help us with any such briefs.
How does filing amicus briefs do any good?
Well, let me finish. If you look at how federal district courts judges are, not the one in Florida, not the one in Oklahoma, and all of the other Trump, toadies, they're the ones that are more willing to hear BIPOC and other underserved people are a lot more flexible with pro se, i.e. non-lawyer represented type issues, and certainly friend of the court would be one of them. So I think in this time where the Chief Justice has scolded Trump to knock it off, I think you're going to see certainly the democratically appointed and maybe even some of the independent-minded federal judges allow non-lawyer friend of the court briefs, especially the ones like the former federal employees or maybe the people in Iowa who can point out all of the children in Africa that are killed because of the soybeans that aren't being sent over, on and on and on.
Okay. Roger, thank you.
All right.
Roz in Tacoma, Washington. Hey, Roz, what's on your mind today?
Yeah, my daughter is going to Puerto Rico for vacation with her 2 sons and her illegal husband.
Uh-oh.
And I'm wondering if you think that they should go or not.
If her husband's not a citizen or doesn't have a green card.
He has a Social Security number.
Is he a citizen?
No.
Yeah, then they should not leave this country because they won't be able to get back in.
Okay.
Thank you. It's just like they're cracking down like never before. I mean, when they're throwing, a millionaire actress in her 40s from Canada, from the American Pie series, who has started a company that's based in California, who has filled out all the paperwork, has a green card, has permission to work in the United States, owns a business, and for 2 weeks they threw her in a cell in solitary confinement. No, if I was advising anybody, even a green card holder, now is not the time to try to re-enter the United States. Unless you're a U.S. citizen with a valid passport, that would be the only basis for which you could safely transit into the United States, in my opinion, given what's going on right now.
They were comparing it to going to Hawaii.
No, it's not. It's a whole different thing. Roz, thank you for the call. No, it's a whole different thing. Amazing. 22 minutes past the hour. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Our daily song is now available on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, YouTube Music, Pandora, Tidal, Deezer, iHeartRadio, and a whole bunch of other platforms. Just look for songs by Louise and Thom Hartmann. Check it out. We've all gotten so used to living in a country where people are trying to crowdfund like cancer research for children. St. Jude's is a wonderful charity, but we're the only developed country in the world that needs, where you have to go to people and beg for money in order to treat children with cancer. Or Shriners, another great charity, but shouldn't we all be funding children who are born with birth defects and problems? We're probably the only country in the world where you can sell your life insurance policy because Social Security doesn't cover your retirement. It's probably not happening anywhere else in the world. Or reverse mortgage your home because you can't afford it. This is crazy that we are living in a country where No Kid Hungry, a charity. You can read all about it. There's a whole op-ed I wrote about this over at HartmannReport.com. It's titled America's Sickest Reality Show, Crowdfunding Cancer Care While Billionaires Hoard Billions. Check it out.
In 33, a nation's cry, a parliament set ablaze. Leader sees the fear and flame, democracy's final days. Will history repeat once more? A crisis as the key. Will Trump ignite the fear and doubt to end our liberty?
25 minutes past the hour. Maybe the judges should be the ones moving fast and breaking things, writes Lisa Needham, over at Daily Kos. Federal judges are still treating the Trump administration like a good faith litigant, she writes, and that has to stop. We have case after case after case. His defiance of the federal courts with regard to his asserting the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. Judge Boasberg saying that the position of the administration is, quote, we don't care, we'll do what we want. And yet he has not held anybody in contempt of court. In fact, he gave them more time this morning. Last month, U.S. District Judge Amir Ali ordered the administration to restore USAID funding. It just didn't. It just ignored him. He still declined. He decided, well, I'm not going to hold them in contempt. U.S. District Judge John McConnell ordered them to unfreeze billions in federal spending. They just ignored him. They defied his order. He did not approve any penalties. The reality is that these judges can all not just sanction the federal government, they can go after the lawyers for the federal government. And they're not. And they should. They could they could hit them with monetary fines. They can even throw them in jail, which is the most extreme position, of course. They can order government lawyers to personally pay for costs and excess and attorney's fees for cases that they lose based on these defiances. U.S. District Judge Emma Sullivan, he said, this is a court order. This isn't a request. I didn't ask them out of the kindness of my heart. Isn't the Department of Justice taking court orders seriously these days? Well, apparently not. Under Rule 11, the courts can sanction Department of Justice attorneys. And I think, and of course, Lisa Needham is saying, they absolutely should. She said, right now, federal courts are sending the message the court orders don't really mean anything. Trump and his buddies are getting away with committing crimes and violating our Constitution. And she writes, the federal courts should stop helping them. Amen. 27 minutes past the hour. What's on your mind? I'll pick up your calls on the other side of the break. Stay with us.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
It's the place where we dare to ask, is Walmart a person? And we dare to say, no, the Supreme Court got that one wrong, too. Who paid them off that time? Probably Walmart. Well, we continue moving along with the Free Speech TV Fund Drive. Only a couple days left. The time is shrinking. The opportunities are closing. This is your last chance, or we're getting close to it, to your last chance to become part of something bigger than you, to become part of Free Speech TV, to become part of this television network, to become a supporter of democracy. The revolutionary figure highlight for today is Ibrahim Traore, who is the young leader of Burkina Faso. He took power at just 34 years old. Unlike many before him, his leadership wasn't about personal power, but about freeing his people from neo-colonial control. He stood firmly against, or stands firmly against, foreign exploitation, particularly Western influence over African resources, and seeks true independence for his nation and his people. He follows in the revolutionary footsteps of Thomas Sankara, a beloved leader who fought for self-sufficiency and anti-imperialism way back in the 1980s. And he isn't stopping at the liberation of Burkina Faso. He wants liberation of all of Africa, quoting Kwame Nkrumah, the first leader of an independent African state, Ghana, who said that the independence of Ghana is meaningless without the independence of all of Africa. I would add that my radio program is, I'm not sure if it's still carried this minute, but for many years it was carried by a radio station in Ghana. At Free Speech TV, we understand that the struggle for justice and sovereignty, like the one that Traore and Kwame championed, is a global cause. And we stand with movements for independence, self-sufficiency, resistance to authoritarianism, and white supremacy. Stand with us. Stand with Free Speech TV. Free Speech TV is for all the people, those who are fighting against tyranny, exploitation, and for the liberation of all marginalized communities. Here's a clip of Kwame Nkrumah.
As I said, our greatest danger stems from disunity and the inability to see that the realization of our hopes and aspirations, the realization of our objective of total African independence, and of our future progress and prosperity is inextricably bound up with the necessity to unify our policy and actions in connection with the continued struggle for independence and the greater task of economic and social reconstruction beyond it. We must therefore face the issue of African unity now, for only unity will make the artificial boundaries and regional demarcations imposed by colonialism obsolete. and superfluous. African unity will thus provide an effective remedy for border disputes and internecine troubles. In a united Africa, there could be no frontier claims between Ethiopia and Somalia, or between Zanzibar and Kenya, Guinea or Liberia, or between Ghana, Togoland, and the Ivory Coast. Because we would regard ourselves as one great continental family of nations. The leaders, it must be confessed, do not see the struggle of their brother Africans as part of their own struggle. Even if they did, they would not be free to express their solidarity. These risks are consciously created by the imperialists between Africans, where they can sit back and watch with slight satisfaction.
Yeah, there you go. So, supporting Free Speech TV, there's two different ways to do it. One is to make a monthly contribution. The other is to make a one-time contribution. You can do both at the same time, and I encourage you to. The monthly contribution can be as small or as substantial as you would like. It can be $5, it could be $500, depending on what works for you. And the one-time gifts, with a $20 one-time gift, you have your choice of the bumper sticker, Elect a Clown, Expect a Circus, or the This Is Not Normal bumper sticker. With a $120 gift, you have your choice of the book by Sonali, Talking About Abolition, or my book, The Hidden History of the American Dream, my most recent book, autographed by the author. With a $1,000 gift, there's the Hidden Collection, all 10 of the Hidden History books. It's 10 books for $100 each instead of one for $120. And of course, the money goes to Free Speech TV. And with a $1,000 gift, you can also come here to Portland and hang out with us during the last hour of the show, and I'll take you to lunch, with a little meet and greet here in Portland if you'd like to hop on an airplane or whatever works for you. So those are the bottom lines. Those are the ways that you can give. The specific, or those are what you can give. The way to do it is to either go to freespeech.org/donate, or just freespeech.org and click the donate button, or call 877-378-8669. 877-378-8669. And if you're going to try to do both, give a one-time gift and make a commitment, that's best to call the phone number to do that. Although I'm guessing you could probably do it with 2 visits to the website. But check it out. We need your help. We're still behind. Please call now or go to freespeech.org and make your contribution. Thank you. Share the Thom Hartmann Program with your friends. Our podcast, The Hartmann Report, is absolutely free and available wherever fine podcasts are available. And the entire 3-hour podcast is available over at thomhartmann.com. So Richard Nixon was a crook, but not a lot of Americans knew that in 1960. But he lost to John Kennedy, not because he was a crook, but because he didn't know how to use television. He refused to wear makeup during the debates. Jack Kennedy understood television, and it was why he was so widely popular. Calvin Coolidge was the first president to use radio in 1923, but Franklin Roosevelt did his fireside chats starting in 1933, just after he was inaugurated, and they were often listened to by a third of Americans. That's why he got reelected 3 times. He was elected 4 times to president. If Joe Biden had done the same thing during his 4 years, reaching all the American people every week, using social media, the new media, because that was radio and television back in the day, he would be in the White House right now, or Kamala Harris. There's a whole article about this, how Democrats need to get with the plan. They need to figure out how to use social media and get some charismatic candidates out there. Over at HartmannReport.com, is titled Democrats' Fatal Flaw. Check it out.
They cheer in the streets, they wave their flags high. A crowd. But don't raise a question, don't think it too loud. Step by step, the lines start to blur. Truth fades to static, justice deferred. The doors close tighter, the walls start to lean. The past gets rewritten on glowing screens. They think they are free, but for how long? When silence is safety, light is now wrong. The cages are built all at once in a day. You wake up too late when there's no way away.
Welcome back. 36 minutes past the hour. Picking up your calls here. What's on your mind? David in San Francisco. Hey, David. What's up?
Yeah, hey, Tom. Yeah, two things. A while back, I found a pretty interesting book about what it was like to be in Poland after Hitler invaded. And it was called The Story of a Secret State. And it's the theme of it was that the old government basically set up courts, they set up schools, they set up, welfare systems and clinics and all sorts of different things. And they did it without German money. So they had to find a way to get all of these functions going while, the Nazis were saying you have to use this kind of money. There was a patriotic money. Now, in this cusp, before Trump tries to pull that kind of crap, we can not pay into the Treasury that Elon has gotten into by taking every local tax break that we can do. Invest in your local bond issues, invest in your school bond issue and your sewer bond issue. And then if you don't have any bond issues, find local charities that actually do good work and get your tax write-off from them. And then, of course, if you have an IRA, I think you can put, $6,000 a year into your IRA?
Yeah, I'm not sure, but
fill up
something, yeah.
Yeah, don't fill up the Treasury because you know that Elon is going to steal it.
Yeah, I
And
get
if
it. I suspect most people who have the means to do those kinds of perfectly legal and frankly reasonable tax avoidance are already doing them. But your point is well taken, David. Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing that. Bill in Richmond, Virginia. Hey, Bill, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I was telling your screener, and I was just reading this article again from what's a thing called Vox. And it was an interview with a fellow named David Shore, who is the main data guy for the Democratic Party. Yeah, David Shore, in fact, he runs a thing called the, I can't think of the name is. It's one of these think tank things. And he says that the reason why that Trump won was not because of some big well, there was this, though. They lost because moderate and conservative Democrats would not vote for him, or the Democratic Party. And he goes through it in every state and explains this. He said, and there was a meeting here about 2 or 3 weeks ago that conservative or moderate Democrats had in Northern Virginia trying to figure out what to do to get the party back on track. And it was a came to get rid of the extreme left. But let me go to the Fox article again a second. And this is the Democratic data guy.
Yeah, no, I get it. I get it.
40% of the country is moderate. 20% is progressive. And as I told earlier, all I got to do is look back at the elections of 72 with McGovern and what that did to the Democratic Party. And then I look at the 84 election. In both cases, it took the Democrats forever to come in from the woods. And so who came in, Dale? Clinton, which I know progressives don't particularly like him. But it's because he did take a more centrist thing.
Yeah.
And the other thing they said, my final point is, he said the Democrats focus too much on ideological issues where they basically just skipped over the economy. it's kind of like, it's okay, just keep going. And I don't say the economy was bad when Biden left office, but I've said this before, that you say the country's basically progressive. They are on things like Medicare, Social Security, but that's been around so long, that's part of the fabric, almost like the Constitution. But do you agree with all what this gentleman's saying? I can email you a copy of the article.
No, I believe you, Bill, and take your word for it, and I read Vox from time to time. I have a bunch of thoughts on this, and these are really important points that you're raising, and I realize you're coming from a more conservative point of view. I'm coming from a more progressive one, but I think that we might be saying the same thing here. So hear me out. I would say, number one, I believe that the reason that Donald Trump won the election, or more appropriately, the reason why Kamala Harris lost the election, was because for 4 years, Joe Biden was a completely blank, incompetent communicator who never bothered to tell the country the good stuff he was doing. And so the majority of Americans, as our economy was literally the world's best in the last year of the Biden administration, for the entire year. I mean, articles, headlines in the Financial Times and The Economist, the envy of the world. We had inflation down to 2.6%. We had the best job growth we had had since 19. We had, I could go on and on. You know these things as well as I do. But Biden was completely incompetent when it came to telling people this stuff, and so was the Democratic Party. And so along came the Republicans, and they said, let us tell you who these Democrats really are. What they really are is people who want to replace white men with black women or trans people. They want to kick you out of the workplace. They want to take your child and chop off his penis at school. They want to just do all these horrible. This was the mainstream stuff the Republican was saying. Of course, there was the crazy channel where they were talking about Democrats drinking kids' blood to get adrenochrome and all that kind of stuff. But I'm just talking the actual ads that were running on television and the messages that were being delivered, particularly to people watching Fox so-called news and other right-wing media. They came to believe that the so-called far left or radical left was all about, trans rights and the Great Replacement Theory. Jewish people, international Jews like George Soros, paying to replace good white men in their jobs and frankly even in their families with people of color or queer people. And they succeeded in doing that. The Republicans succeeded in doing that because the Democrats were not communicating what they were accomplishing. In my opinion, that's what's going on. When I say that most of America is progressive, I get it, that most of America does not think, for example, that trans women should compete in general sports. But, at the local level or something, that doesn't have to do with national events and things like that, it's just bigotry. It's just, trans people are the easiest people to hate on because they're the smallest minority in America. And so, this whole sports thing is really just a smokescreen for promoting, low-hanging fruit bigotry, basically. And so you've got that. You've got, what's her name, Nancy Mace, and her hysteria about the trans member of Congress using the bathroom as if, she's some kind of predator when we all know that that's complete BS. And by the way, women don't walk around naked in bathrooms anyway. There are stalls for that. I mean,
No, that's true.
So in my opinion, Bill, this was, on the one hand, on the Democratic side, a complete failure of communication until the last 3 months. And you can't win a 4-year election in 3 months. And on the Republican side, they made no argument at all for why we should elect the Republicans. There was no, we'll do better with the economy, because the economy was doing great. There was no, we're going to get more people a good college education, because they were actively working against people being able to get a college education. There was no, we're going to improve our schools, because they were actively working against improving our schools. So basically, the entire message of the GOP was, these Democrats, and including Kamala Harris, and by the way, have you noticed that she's black? These Democrats just want to kick out white people, replace them with black people and queer people, and they're going to chop off your kid's penis at school. And that was pretty much it. And Bill, you're a conservative. Do you disagree with that analysis?
No, I don't. I don't, because, and like I was saying, your screener, Our congressman is a Democrat, Abigail Spanberger, and I voted for her the last 2 or 3 elections because she fits in more, here we go again, with more of a moderate approach to things.
Right.
I think the thing what this article talks about, and this is the key thing he said, and this might be what the Republicans are doing too, is that there was too much emphasis on ideological things, depending on what group.
Which is code for supporting black people and queer people. I mean, let's just be honest about this, Bill. Unless you can think of some other topic that you can define as ideological.
Well, I think it's more like this, Tom, as I told you, 1972, George McGovern. I voted for him, and the Democrats...
I did too. McGovern lost in 72 because Nixon lied and said that he had a secret plan to win the war in Vietnam, or to end the war in Vietnam, and he had it all worked out. And it was a complete lie. And the war dragged on for, another 4 years, and another 20,000 Americans died in that war. McGovern, it had nothing to do with McGovern being too liberal, and as far as I can tell. I mean, name one liberal position that McGovern had that repelled Americans.
Yeah, well, the thing about the war, and at the time, you're right, Nixon did lie about it.
And McGovern called it out, and he said, no, you can't end the war that way. He doesn't have a secret plan. I'll try to come up with something, but I don't have a plan either. And that was when McGovern died in 72. And you and I were both there. We both know this.
Okay, one final one I will bring up. Look at 84 with Mondale. That'll...
Well, Reagan was riding high. I mean, he took our national debt from $800 billion up to $2.4 trillion. He took a almost $2 trillion credit card to the U.S. economy, and that goosed the economy. I mean, how do you fight that?
But Tom, what this data guy is saying, though, is this. That the Republican Party, and it's interesting what he said. They said it's the Republicans that pushed to get the vote out greater. Just in general, that Trump would have won by 5 points.
Yeah, it's possible. It's possible. I get it, Bill. Bill, I'm sorry we're out of time here, but thanks for the call. It's always good to hear from you. I appreciate it. Nice having a rational, conservative perspective from time to time. Bill, thank you. 48 minutes past the hour. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archive.
It's talk media for the sane among us. Yes, we are still here. Left, right, and center. Stick around. And welcome back. Scott in Portland. Hey, Scott, what's on your mind today?
Hey, folks. I got a couple things. I'll just rip through them real quick. First, thanks for having Heidi on. She's great. I signed up for her newsletter after seeing an interview with you several months ago on the Supreme Court election that's coming up for in Wisconsin. And Brian Tyler Cohen just dropped yesterday an interview with Ben Wickler, who's the head of the Democratic Party in Wisconsin. It's excellent. You bring up the rule of 3, and I'll leave it for you to explain that if you want. But I started noticing about a year ago that the pharmaceuticals, the drugs, are 3 syllables. And so I pulled up online, and I talked the top 20 best-selling pharmaceutical drugs. They're all 3 syllables.
Oh, really?
Like Ozempic and Keytruda and Eliquis and Viagra, and so there's another example for you you can throw at the rule of 3.
Oh, I'm going to have to reprise my rule of 3 article. I wrote that about 3 years ago.
Yeah, just add that in there too. And the Republican projection just bugs the hell out of me. Every accusation is a confession, right?
Yeah.
And you mentioned earlier about the Trump derangement syndrome, and it struck me about a while back. Somebody was going off about, you guys are just derangement syndrome, and it's like, no, we're not the ones that have a derangement syndrome. You're the ones that have the derangement syndrome. We're very clear-eyed about who Trump is. You guys are completely delusional and completely, brain fogged. So it's just more projection that they keep shoving at us. And
yeah, I think that's a reasonable analysis, Scott. I can't disagree with you.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. Okay. Thanks a lot, Scott. I appreciate it. Mike in Chicago. Hey, Mike. Thanks for watching Free Speech. What's up?
Hi, I just wanted to point out, you had mentioned a couple times about how you're frustrated that the media is not pointing out any of these protests. That may be true probably on a large scale in the major media outlets, but I was watching Rachel Maddow yesterday, and she opened up with...
She's the only one, though, Mike. Remember when the Tea Party was going on? Those protests were literally just 50 people, 100 people, and they were covered as national news every single day.
My point is that he was showing clips, and they had the station's letters.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Who presented. So they're local.
Yeah.
They're showing them locally. Yeah. And while it's not nationally, locally it's still pretty good because that's pretty effective because that actually is more, direct, I think, to the people seeing this. So I think that's important to know. And so I felt good seeing that.
I did too.
And I understand that, the national thing, your issue, but if because I think people watch more local stuff than they do national because a lot of people have tuned out of the national news.
Well, I think it depends. There are people, I think people who have internet and are watching TV on the internet, the cord cutters, as it were, which is more and more of Americans. I think it's well over half now. I think they're mostly watching national news. And the people who are using free TV, over-the-air TV, are the ones who are watching the local news. But your point is well taken. During the Tea Party time, you had, I believe it was the Koch brothers, it was whoever was behind the Tea Parties, the billionaires behind the Tea Parties. They actually had PR firms out there that were just pounding on radio, television stations, particularly the television networks, to cover these protests, which is how they got such huge coverage, which then was generative. People would see it and then they go, oh, wow, I should show up for that. That is not, to the best of my knowledge, happening right now, and it should be. Mike, thank you for the call. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us.
I was tangled in the headlines, caught up in the noise. The weight of the world had stolen my joys. I grabbed my coat, left my phone behind. Told myself it's time to unwind. The city fades as the highway bends. The air turns clean where the pavement ends. Go find your mountain.
53 minutes past the hour. Welcome back. Picking up your calls here. George in Cripple Creek, Virginia. Hey, George, what's on your mind today?
Hey, how you doing, Tom? I think Putin played Trump like a fiddle here immediately after that so-called 30-day ceasefire. He's attacking Ukrainian energy infrastructure, and one of his demands is, for a permanent ceasefire is a complete cutoff of all military aid to Ukraine.
Right. It's a joke. Yeah. I'm astonished that Trump had the audacity to claim that they had achieved standing.
Yeah. Interesting sidelight. Do you know what Vladimir's name in Russian means?
I don't, but you speak Russian, so what is it?
Yeah, right. Well, it comes from the Russian word vladet, which means possess or rule, and mir is the world. You think that's gone to his head?
I'm sorry, say it again?
Rule the world.
Rule the world. That's what Vladimir means, the ruler of the world?
That's exactly right, yep.
Wow. Well, you got a Vladimir and a Volodymyr. I'm assuming they have the same root word, so this is going to get interesting.
Exactly right. But Zelensky isn't trying to rule the world, but I think that's gone to Putin's head.
Yeah, I totally get it. George, I had a call, just before the last break, from a fellow who describes himself as a conservative, and we hit the break, so I didn't have a chance to ask the question that I wanted to ask. But let me, if I may, ask it of you respectfully. The first time you called this program, you identified yourself as a conservative. What do you think it is that causes conservatives to call themselves conservatives?
I don't know. I think, I consider myself an Eisenhower conservative, maybe conserving the parts of the past that were the best, and I'm willing to consider anything that past injuries and all that ought to be modified.
Right. So, yeah, okay. I'm still scratching my head. I mean, my dad always told me that he liked to quote William F. Buckley, that a conservative is a man who stands athwart or astride the arc of history with his hand out shouting stop or slow down. That, change is a good thing, positive change is a good thing, but do it carefully.
Right, exactly. But I agree with you. Things that, like civil rights, et cetera, that, were problems in the past ought to be
should be
ratified and corrected.
Yeah.
Like my dad was an Eisenhower Republican.
Yeah.
And my mom was a dyed-in-the-wool Democrat because her first presidential vote was for FDR in 1944.
Wow.
They used to joke that they cancel each other out on election day.
Well, I'm glad they could joke about it. That's something we need to bring back. George,
keep up the good work, Tom, and I enjoy listening to your program.
I'll do my best. George, thanks so much for the call. It's always nice hearing from you. And thank you for being with us today. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. In the meantime, don't forget, democracy is not a spectator sport. It requires all of us. That includes you. So get out there, get active, tag You're It, indivisible.org, 5050.1, FIFTY.ONE. Check them out. And have a great afternoon. Be good to yourself and the folks around you. Stay safe, and I'll catch up with you tomorrow.
You've been listening to Thom Hartmann. For audio and video archives, visit thomhartmann.com.
In addition to bringing you the Thom Hartmann Program here on Free Speech TV and Video Media Online, we also have a whole set of ways you can interact with us and tools you can use to spread the word about the importance of democracy and the threats to it in our republic. First, there's your daily homework. Sue Nethercutt puts together a daily email newsletter that has a link to every story I discuss on the air, so you can find my sources and you can share them with your friends. It's free, and you can sign up at thomhartmann.com. Second, I publish my daily take every day over at the HartmannReport.com website. That's also free if you want the daily 5 days a week rant in your inbox. No ads either. Third, we have the podcasts. There's the free 1-hour version of our daily show that's advertising supported. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts normally. And then there's also the podcast of the entire 3-hour show with no advertisements, and that's available over at thomhartmann.com. So check them all out at thomhartmann.com and hartmannreport.com.
We say fight back!
Well, we continue moving along with the Free Speech TV Fund Drive. Only a couple days left. The time is shrinking. The opportunities are closing. This is your last chance, or we're getting close to it, to your last chance to become part of something bigger than you, to become part of Free Speech TV, to become part of this television network, to become a supporter of democracy. The revolutionary figure highlight for today is Ibrahim Traoré, who is the young leader of Burkina Faso. He took power at just 34 years old. Unlike many before him, his leadership wasn't about personal power, but about freeing his people from neo-colonial control. He stood firmly against, or stands firmly against, foreign exploitation, particularly Western influence over African resources, and seeks true independence for his nation and his people. He follows in the revolutionary footsteps of Thomas Sankara, a beloved leader who fought for self-sufficiency and anti-imperialism way back in the 1980s. And he isn't stopping at the liberation of Burkina Faso. He wants liberation of all of Africa. quoting Kwame Nkrumah, the first leader of an independent African state, Ghana, who said that the independence of Ghana is meaningless without the independence of all of Africa. I would add that my radio program is, I'm not sure if it's still carried this minute, but for many years it was carried by a radio station in Ghana. At Free Speech TV, we understand that the struggle for justice and sovereignty, like the one that Traore and Kwame championed, is a global cause. And we stand with movements for independence, self-sufficiency, resistance to authoritarianism, and white supremacy. Stand with us. Stand with Free Speech TV. Free Speech TV is for all the people, those who are fighting against tyranny, exploitation, and for the liberation of all marginalized communities. Here's a clip of Kwame Nkrumah.
As I said, our greatest danger stems from disunity and the inability to see that the realization of our hopes and aspirations, the realization of our objective of total African independence, and of our future progress and prosperity is inextricably bound up with the necessity to unify our policy and actions in connection with the continued struggle for independence and the greater task of economic and social reconstruction beyond it. We must therefore face the issue of African unity now. For only unity will make the artificial boundaries and regional demarcations imposed by colonialism obsolete and superfluous. African unity will thus provide an effective remedy for border disputes and internecine troubles. In a united Africa, there could be no frontier claims between Ethiopia and Somalia, or between Zanzibar and Kenya, Guinea or Liberia, or between Ghana, Togoland, and the Ivory Coast. Because we would regard ourselves as one great continental family of nations. The leaders, it must be confessed, do not see the struggle of their brother Africans as part of their own struggle. Even if they did, they would not be free to express their solidarity. These rifts are consciously created by the imperialists between Africans, where they can sit back and watch with slight satisfaction.
Yeah, there you go. So, supporting Free Speech TV, there's two different ways to do it. One is to make a monthly contribution. The other is to make a one-time contribution. You can do both at the same time, and I encourage you to. The monthly contribution can be as small or as substantial as you would like. It can be $5, it could be $500, depending on what works for you. And the one-time gifts, with a $20 one-time gift, you have your choice of the bumper sticker, Elect a Clown, Expect a Circus, or the This Is Not Normal bumper sticker. With a $120 gift, you have your choice of the book by Sonali, Talking About Abolition, or my book, The Hidden History of the American Dream, my most recent book, autographed by me, by the author. With a $1,000 gift, there's the Hidden History book collection, all 10 of the Hidden History books. It's a discount, right? 10 books for $100 each instead of one for $120. And of course, the money goes to Free Speech TV. And with a $1,000 gift, you can also come here to Portland and hang out with us during the last hour of the show, and I'll take you to lunch, with a little meet and greet here in Portland if you'd like to hop on an airplane or whatever works for you. So those are the bottom lines. Those are the ways that you can give. The specific, or those are what you can give. The way to do it is to either go to freespeech.org/donate, or just freespeech.org and click the donate button, or call 877-378-8669. 877-378-8669. And if you're going to try to do both, give a one-time gift and make a commitment, that's best to call the phone number to do that. Although I'm guessing you could probably do it with 2 visits to the website. But check it out. We need your help. We're still behind. Please call now or go to freespeech.org and make your contribution. Thank you.